Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome into our latest live video. Today it is the 23rd of August, 2026. I'm Carey Holzman, and today we're going to review fresh from the factory a brand new, just released model of MINISFORUM computer from a brand new, just released chip from Intel. The very first time we're looking at one, and we expect we'll see some other competitive models equipped with the same chip, but this is the first one that we're looking at, and I'll give you some more information about that. But first, thank you to our friend Buster, as always, for the Amazon gift card, supporting the show as he does each and every show. And I will say hello to everybody in the chat, see if he's in there in just a minute. But first, I want to remind you about our friends over at VIP-URCDKEys. When I buy license keys for my customers, they have to be legal, they have to be legit. I am held accountable for that. And I was getting ripped off for a long time because I couldn't buy in the size bulk orders that Dell and other system integrators, they buy so much more quantity, they pay far less per unit. And it was difficult to be competitive in that marketplace. It wasn't that long ago that it was $100 for Windows XP, I think the Windows 95, Windows 98, they were all about $100, Windows 7. And that's when I started looking around for alternative sources for those legitimate license keys. And online I found so many scammers, just stolen keys, reused keys, keys that had to be activated by telephone. Well, Microsoft has shut down that telephone activation, so those scammers had to find another way to scam, or they had to go legit. And bottom line is I spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to find a good source. And eventually, when I happened upon VIP-URCDKEys, they're the ones I buy my keys from, or my clients, so I can be competitive and know I'm selling my clients a legitimate Microsoft product, not a pirated product, not a stolen product, and not something that's advertised to be one thing. Like one time I bought Windows 11 or Windows 10 Pro, and what I ended up getting was Windows 10 Pro for workgroups, which I didn't know what that was. And I thought, well, probably the same thing. And then when I brought it over to the customer's office, I had a hell of a time getting it on the network because there were a bunch of default group policy settings I wasn't familiar with. Really, really shot myself in the foot. And the seller wouldn't return any emails, and it was a whole big nightmare. That makes me look bad to the customer, as it should. And I made sure that, that'll never happen again. So as I went around trying different product keys, eventually I stumbled upon the parent company of VIP-URCDKEys. And I tested them, they were good. I tested them again to see if they were consistent, and then I tested them one more time. Like, that's how thorough I am. And I was so impressed with them, I reached out and I said, hey, would you be interested? Could I twist your arm and make this offer that I'm paying for these license keys to my audience? And not only did they say yes, but they offer the discount, which, by the way, I wasn't getting, to all of you guys. Now, this is not a commission-based link, all right? If you buy it or you don't buy it, this is for you. This is a service I provide to all of my viewers, and I personally guarantee these keys are legal, legitimate, and will activate. If you want to know more about them, if you look at any of my live videos, like this one I'll put up on the screen right now from a few months ago, you see the title, and as you scroll down, you see that first gray box. You click on where it says More. That opens up our video description. That has all the links and all the information of what we talk about in that specific video. And in most of these videos, we have these links for VIP-URCDKEys. In fact, it should be in all of the videos. And you don't have to use these links. They're there for your convenience. So you can just click on a link, take you right to Windows 11 Pro, for example. You could always just go to the site yourself and search for it yourself. If you want to do things the hard way, knock yourself out. When you try to add the product to the cart, it needs you to sign in. If you don't have a sign in, it's free to make one. They need to know where to send your receipt, where to send your product key. If I were you, I wouldn't be making up information there. Then you can put in my name where the promotion code box is if you want to. If you want to save 25% off their already low price, put my name in there. If you don't care about that, don't do it. I don't make any different amount of money if you buy it or you don't buy it. Next, you're going to choose how you want to pay. Excuse me, how you want to pay. So just pick whatever payment method you want to use. and then hit the Pay Now button. And the screen that appears will be the standard questionnaire or form that you need to fill out on any e-commerce site that uses those payment methods. It's not, those payment methods are, the process to pay is controlled by those financial institutions. It is not controlled by them. So once they hand that off, it's very secure. It's as safe as any other purchase online with those payment services, because no matter where you're starting your payment from, the payment service itself is the one that handles and processes your information. All they need, all VIP-URCD keys needs, is an approval number, an okay, a thumbs up. Once they get that, they send you an email that, first of all, they make sure they get paid, right? Then the next thing that happens, it's just like when you go to the grocery store. You don't get to walk out of the store until your credit card's approved through the payment machine, and then you can take your stuff and go. So this is the same thing, only it's happening digitally. Within about 2 minutes of you submitting your payment information, you should get an email, day or night, any day of the week, holiday, weekend, doesn't matter. That'll contain your receipt number, which is very important if you need support. Unlike most key sellers, they offer support, and that support is good up to 6 months. What else can I tell you? Oh, the email will contain the download link if you need the software, like if you need Windows or you need Office. I already download that stuff myself, but they provide download links directly from Microsoft in the email along with your activation key. That's it. There's also some basic instructions. Follow those instructions. If you have any problems, reach out to their 24/7 chat support on their website. And if you still have any problems remaining and they're not resolving them for you, I need to know about it. Please email me and let me know. I'll solve it for you, but I also want to keep track. As long as everybody's happy, if something happens, I need to know the frequency. It's usually maybe twice a year, something, and it's usually a miscommunication. It always gets straightened out. But I want to promise you, this is not a scam. This is real. This is legit. If you want to buy your keys elsewhere, I'm not telling you not to. I'm not guaranteeing them. You're on your own if you do that. If you buy them through my recommendation, you've got me as your bodyguard, making sure that everything goes right. Just in case it doesn't, I'm there and I've got your back. I don't charge anything for that. That's a gift to you as my appreciation for you being my viewer. All right. And with that, let me say hello to everybody joining us in the chat room, and then we can get to talking about what's in this box and who it may be best designed for or intended for. So let me get over here to our chat room. And go up here. Here we go. Victor Torres says hello in the chat. I also see Jonathan Fells and Scott Messerschmidt. Luke Greeny is saying hello from Vermont. And Gary Tatum's joining us as well. We see Mark Gaines and Sean Skinner here in our chat room. Let's see. Michael Lavelle says hello. Marlena, our channel administrator, says hello in the chat. Eddie Casanova joins us. There's John Williams saying hello, along with Andy W6AD. Jim Kenny says hello, along with Xander Vanderhoven and John Lewis. There's Buster from Edinburgh, Scotland, saying the temperature, which is very late in the evening there in Scotland right now, it's 62 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 16.6 degrees Celsius. There in Edinburgh. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Good to see you. Brian Weber says hello. Peter Retired is joining us as well. Owen Smith says hello. Just a question, is it legal to buy an LTSC key for Windows 10? Yes. Well, see, so the average Ooh, I'm getting some really weird delays here. Hopefully everything's looking good on your side. I'm not sure. We look like we're skipping frames. Yes, legal versus Microsoft policy. Microsoft policy intends for LTSC to be utilized by companies that have IT support departments. You get minimal security updates, no feature updates, and no changes to Windows. You will not get any features. You will not grow. If you want to freeze in time to 2024, 24, 25. All new features have stopped. All they're doing now is maintenance, bare bones maintenance, which means that any sort of work that needs to happen from 2025 forward, beyond the bare minimum security requirements, needs to be done by an IT department, and that includes any new technologies. There won't be any compatibility for that unless you manually figure it out and add it yourself. It's not intended for a home user. However, listen, you might have a prescription bottle that the doctor writes you, and the prescription bottle might give instructions. Those aren't laws. Those are suggestions or perhaps hospital policy. Let's say you're in a hospital and you need some pain medication. The nurse will not leave the pain medication with you. This is the way it works in the world now. So the pain medication will be handed to you. You will take it in front of the nurse and they'll make sure that you didn't hide it. Like, I guess you're going to steal it and sell it. I don't know. And you say, hey, in case I start feeling a little bit of pain, can you leave one for, a pill for later? No, they're not allowed to do that. It's not that it's necessarily illegal, although it could be, but it'll get them fired from their job, which is policy. So when it comes to, you getting dismissed from the hospital, they say, hey, you can go home and heal at home. Then you can get that same pain medication filled at your pharmacy and take the whole bottle if you're stupid enough, all at once. In other words, the same medicine in your hands, in your house, can be distributed however you want to distribute it, although some distribution methods may in fact be illegal, like selling it as a drug, to somebody on the street. It is in your name. It is intended only for you, and you're supposed to follow the recommended dosage. That's it. Nobody would know if you did or you didn't when it's in your house and you're the only one taking it. If you say, oh, this is good, I might save some for a future point where I might need it, and let it sit in a cabinet for 6 months, you're not breaking any law. If you worked in a hospital and you did that, you could lose your job because you might be violating hospital policy. Okay, so it's pretty unwise, coming from a professional computer technician, for any home user to put LTSC on thinking, I won't need to get any, my Windows will be supported, but you're not really being supported. The support's being offhanded to an IT department, and you're getting minimal updates, just life support. That's all that is life support. You're not growing, you're not evolving, and you're not advancing. You're frozen in time, and they just keeping you alive. All right, so if you want to do that to yourself, there's no law against it, but it'd be pretty unwise because there's a big payment at the end of that you don't realize until you do it. What's going to happen is, with these Windows updates we're getting every month, they're including a lot of new features. So did Microsoft's Windows 10. Until support ended, all the features stopped. There's no more advancement, no more growth. All we're doing now is you're on hospice. That's it. Very few people ever leave hospice alive. LTSC is hospice for Windows 10. That's all it is. It's the bare minimum to keep you alive, to keep your operating system alive. There are more security risks in Windows 10 than there are in Windows 11. Even with security updates, Windows 10 is 3 times more likely. It has 3 times more critical vulnerabilities that remain unpatched than Windows 11 does. If you wish to do that to yourself, it is legal, yes. It's against a Microsoft policy for that to be in an individual's home. It needs to be supported by an IT department. That's mostly for legal and liability reasons. But what you do at home is your business. So the short answer to your question is yes. But a lot of people don't understand policy versus law. Corporate rules affect corporate employees. Laws affect all of us. We all have to obey the laws, the same laws. Just like every employee at Intel has to obey Intel's policies, but you better not be obeying Intel's policies when you're working at AMD, because it may violate AMD's policies. The result is it affects only you. You don't go to jail for it. You just lose your job. Okay, so policy versus law. Richard DeFry says hello. There's Stephen Detroit joining us from South Africa. He says, I see a number 6. Does that mean I'm a member for 6 months? It means you've been a member for no less than 6 months. That number won't change again until you hit 12 months. So you could be at month 7, month 9. It'll still say 6. YouTube does not provide us a badge for every month. So then after you hit 12, you won't see another until you see 24, and then 36, and 48, and 60, etc. We haven't had memberships for 60 months, so nobody's at 60, but some people are getting close. Maybe by the beginning of next year, we'll start seeing 60 on some of these folks' memberships, which is just amazing. I love it. I can't thank you enough for your support. Mickey's Tech Spot said it's time for a new PC. Isaiah says hello. Let's see, Ben Laird joining us from Scotland, along with David Herzog. And Edward Bass saying hello in the chat. We are live, broadcasting in 4K around the planet right now, in this very moment, on Sunday, the 23rd of August, 2026. If you're watching this right now, you're going to see a chat room over here. Come in and say hello. We'd love to hear from you, unless you don't want to be nice. Do I need to say that? But it's a pretty low bar to be nice, and it's so much better for all of us. Because when people act selfishly and want to create a scene, it's about 2 seconds and you're banned for life from this channel. And you can't, you can regret it later, but there's no redo. So just come on in and say hello and make some friends, and it's way, way better for all of us. And we have plenty of room for more and more like-minded individuals to join this amazing and supportive community. We'd love to see you in there. Bernie says hello, and so does Gunnar Glenn. And let's see. I'm sorry to hear Buster appears. He's not feeling too good today, but maybe we can distract you for a little while, Buster. Hopefully I've said hello to everybody. There's nothing worse than, not being acknowledged, it's a terrible feeling. And it's not done on purpose if I miss you. Like, I just see I missed Jose Lopez. Hello to Jose. See, I do that on purpose. I'm kind of double checking. If I missed you, let me know, because I don't want anybody to feel alienated. I want you all to feel welcome, and I appreciate that you're all here. TXX3 says hello from Australia, and Proteva says hello from Missouri. So again, welcome in. There's Keystone Cultivators says hello in our chat room. All right, guys. So I was super excited when I heard about this new chip from Intel. And I didn't really hear about it until MINISFORUM reached out to me and told me about this new computer that just got released. I'm like, what chip is that? It's a really weird... Let me just show you. Let's go over to MINISFORUM's website. And I will just show you the way it's being promoted. Now, this is not yet available for sale on Amazon. It will be soon. But if you want to order this right now, you'd have to order it from MINISFORUM's website. Ain't nothing wrong with that. They've got $30 off coupon. They've got, I think, 30-day free returns. It's just you're not going to have that really fast Amazon shipping and the routine that you may be familiar with if you're like me and you order a lot from Amazon. Every company's got their own policies and rules you have to follow. But if you want it quickly and you don't want to wait, you go right to the source. So let's take a look at what the website says here. This is the MINISFORUM Elite Mini M2 Air-304. That price of $263, that's going to be bare bones. That's you. At that price, you need to put your own RAM and storage and operating system on it. And you think, well, geez, for $263, that can't be very good, right? Well, hold on a minute. This is a Core 3 304. This just came out. Usually the number of cores a processor has is an even number, but this one is a 5-core. Yeah, 5-core, 5-thread processor. It's almost like a 5-cylinder engine. You know, they do make them. They're not very common. Built-in Intel graphics, of course. It's got two 2.5 gig Ethernet LAN ports plus Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.4. The memory is socketable DDR5, and there is a 2 terabyte, or sorry, up to 2 terabyte PCIe Gen 4 M.2. And then there's also a trans-flash card expansion slot, which is apparently the new way we're calling micro SD cards is trans-flash. I don't know when that change happened, but they're the same thing. Now, the minute, if you want to add storage and RAM to this, you can double this price. That's just the way it is with storage and RAM. They've got it on sale. It was 16 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig M.2. You're at $560. See, so the price is pretty much, if not exactly double, very, very close. This is not shipping until next month. We're getting an early look at it because MINISFORUM is so cool that I might have a biased attitude that they consider us worthy to see the unit early. And to allow us, by the way, to review it any way we want to and say anything about it. We're not restricted. We're not under any NDA. And they don't even send suggestions of what I should talk about. They just go, here, do your thing, Carey. Wow. I mean, I can't tell you what that means to me. Take a look at the ports on this thing, though. 2 HDMIs and 2 Ethernet ports. When you see 2 Ethernet ports, and especially on a really small, inexpensive computer, that's ideal if you want to make like a soft router, some run OpenSense or you know, something like that, pfSense. And you've got those 2 USB Type-Cs. Let's get into what these ports are. A couple USB 1s there on the front, headphone jack, a reset button for the BIOS, and a power button. There's your micro SD card slot or trans-flash card slot there on the side. It's a 2-year warranty on this, free RMA returns. They also will have financing they offer, and it's really quiet. The USB-Cs are USB 4s, in case you were wondering, that can do up to 40 gig per second with DisplayPort and power delivery support. That's really nice. That means if you traveled with this, you could plug this in, and then with the right type of USB Type-C cable, plug that cable, just the USB-C cable, into your portable monitor. And then, you know, bring a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse or a wireless keyboard and mouse, and you're up and running with Wi-Fi, assuming you have Wi-Fi available. That's all there is. Just one plug to plug in the wall. That's what you can do with display output and power delivery support. It's got one M.2, the space rather, for an M.2 2280, depending on how you order it. And the DDR5 is socketable up to, it says 64 gigs. Doesn't tell me if that's 1 or 2 slots. We'll have to check. It's got a couple different power modes, balanced mode and a quiet mode. That involves how much power it consumes and how much noise it can make. So the more power it consumes, the louder the fans may have to get to keep it cool. If you don't need all the power, like if it's digital signage, if it's an open router, you know, if it's a home theater PC, whatever, you just could put it in silent mode. You won't even hear the thing. And it consumes very little power, which means the electricity cost to run it is much lower, especially over a long period of time. You can mount it on the back of a monitor. It's 0.47 of a liter in total size. So you're looking at less than half a liter. It can support 3 displays at the same time, which is the 2 HDMI outputs and 1 of those USB Type-Cs, so that you have 3 independent displays operating simultaneously up to 4K. Some examples of how it's designed or intended for would be work, receptionist or frontline dealing with a customer at a counter, Again, the soft router, network segmentation, et cetera, that a router could do. Let's see, it's quiet, so that way you could focus on your work without the distraction. You could use it as a media center, as I talked about already. You can even use it to create content across multiple screens so that you separate out the controls of your work from the output of the work. And if you're a creator, you'll understand the benefit of having those multiple screens. The chip is pretty interesting. At 5 cores and 5 threads, up to 4.3 gigahertz when it turbos up. 28 watts. A very strange chip. A little bit about the noise, a little bit more about the networking. And the memory looks like we have 1 socket. So what this tells you is this is the new baseline for budget. The budget keeps getting better and better and better. The Celeron chips, for example, only had one socket on these mini PCs. They did not support dual channel memory because they're a budget chip. What's the point of having multiple memory modules or putting a ton of powerful amount of RAM into a relatively, how can I explain that? The chip, the CPU itself is designed to be budget friendly. It is not designed to be a powerhouse. You're not going to buy a budget chip and turn it into a powerhouse. You can't. So this is designed with all of that in mind. Basically, you have room for 1 NVMe drive, that's Gen 4. You have room for 1 DDR5 module, but at least it's DDR5. Anything above and beyond this, you would want a higher end computer at a higher price. So set your expectations accordingly. This is a really good value for what you get. And with the RAM and the speed of the SSD, it's likely faster or as fast as an i7 from 6 or 7 years ago at probably 70% less of the cost, minus the RAM and the storage. Because that's probably a lot more today than it was years ago. But, well, there's no probably about it. It's grossly priced higher today. But that's got nothing to do with MINISFORUM. They don't make RAM or storage. All right, so when it comes to the connectivity, again, USB 4, USB Type-C, dual HDMI, dual 2.5 gig LAN. The USB Type-A's have USB 3.2 Gen 2, audio connectivity support, which, you know, you're seeing more and more of that being removed and going to Bluetooth, so it still has a headphone, microphone, speakers jack, if you will. And let's see, scroll down. Here's an example of that cable coming out and going right to the monitor, and it's providing this portable monitor with power and the display signal right through that one monitor. A little bit more about how the displays work. And again, this is all just their marketing, explaining what all the ports are, right? This details every port, what it is, and where it is. In the box, it says we're going to have a VESA mounting bracket with screws, a manual, the machine itself, power brick, power cable. I like that the power cable is not a part of the power brick. That's good. And it looks like we're getting a USB-C cable. What is number 4? Hold on. What does number 4 say? Normally they come with a an HDMI cable. Oh, I guess that's HDMI, just a weird angle. Okay, that's fine. These are all your specs, right, listed through here. This does have an NPU in it. Believe it or not, you can run an LLM on this. It won't be fast, but you can do it. That's unheard of on a budget PC of this price. As far as I know, that's never been done before. I don't know why you would want to do that on a budget PC, but the fact is, you can if you want to. All right, let me get back over to camera 1 so we can unbox this bad boy. For the very first time, these videos are live and unscripted. I remind you, nothing is rehearsed. I don't know what's in this box. If it's damaged, if it doesn't work, this is what you should expect if you order one. All right, so this is why a lot of companies don't like us to do live reviews that are unscripted because we have no control over the edit. There is no edit. The camera turns on and it runs. And for the next 2 hours, we're going to be exploring this. And I can do this confidently because if we ever get a machine that's dead on arrival or damaged, you might as well go buy a lottery ticket. It's almost, well, I wouldn't say never, but the last time that happened was quite a long time ago, to the point where I can't even remember anymore. So I have a lot of confidence that what we've got here will represent exactly what you should expect from what's in the box, how it's packaged, and when you turn it on the first time, what steps you'll need to go through. That's why we do it this way. It's not a lot of polish and glitz to try and fool you or manipulate you into believing into a false reality. If Windows updates take a while, that's because Windows updates take a while. We don't get to edit out life and go, well, here I am as a baby and here I am as retired. There's a lot you're missing between that, but that's what most YouTube content does. And it might be entertaining, but it's not very useful education-wise. So, all right, let's get this unboxed. This is the MINISFORUM M2 Air 30. What did I say it was? 305? 304. Hold on a minute. I gotta check myself. M2 Air 304 from MINISFORUM. Bear with me for just 1 second. I want to set my screen up so I can see what I'm doing. Let's go here, here. This chip, by the way, if you want to know a little bit more about it, the family of chip is called Wildcat Lake. So there was Raptor Lake, and if you're familiar with that, this is our first Wildcat Lake CPU that we've looked at. Hopefully more to come. This is the latest generation. Okay. Here we go with our unboxing. Let me move this over. Move that over. It's our box. We've got, let's see if we go to camera 2. This little pull tab. And that should be it. Super easy. Wow. This is a sandwich. This is my mouse. Look at how tiny that is. Wow. This is about the size of a sandwich. Don't eat that. It's too crunchy. All right, let's get that out of here. That's just a filler so things don't bounce around inside the box. Because what's in here would be your instructions. And warranty information, disclaimer information, FCC compliance. This is a US power plug that has the 2-pin prong, similar to what you'll find on a laptop. That's our HDMI cable. Again, it's got these little dust jackets on it. This is a short HDMI cable, so if you're going to plug this into a monitor and have this mounted behind the monitor, you don't want a 6-foot cable, do you? Other than that, you probably wouldn't need that cable. It's too short. This is that VESA mounting bracket that makes it possible to mount this against the back of your monitor, or most monitors, or to mount it on under a table or under a desk or whatever. That has screws in it as well. And then there's a couple of extra screws here, which I'm not sure what that's for yet. And then finally in the box, we have our power brick. with a barrel style power connector. Nothing else is in the box. And here it all is. So now let's plug it in and turn it on and see what she does. So we start with the barrel power connector. I won't need any of this for right now, so I'll just set all this aside. Just get it out of the way. And we need a keyboard and mouse, which is why I got this out. Just plug that into any USB port. There is looks like a USB 2 back here, which is ideal for keyboard or mouse. Save your high-speed blue USB ports for things that are faster, like USB drive or something. And we'll turn the keyboard and mouse on. I need the HDMI cable plugged into our streamer so we can capture it and send it to your monitor. It doesn't matter which of these two HDMI ports I use. Either one will work equally well. When we turn this on for the first time, we don't want to connect it to the internet, remember? Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here waiting for downloads forever. And I'd rather wait till I get the Windows set up and get to the desktop. Then I can start Windows Update and do other things if I want to. The problem with doing it out of setup is it could affect the boot up if there's any issue with any Windows updates creating a problem. And you can't use the computer till it's done. If you wait till you're done and then you do the Windows updates, you can use the computer while the updates are happening. So those are my preferences personally. So let me grab, I need a power cable for this, and I'll just use the one I've got down here because I have a generic one. It's a very common 2-pin laptop style power connector. I go on Amazon and I get these, they're like super 10 feet long. Not that I would have a problem with this one, but sometimes I have a cable length issue, as you're well aware if you've been watching this channel, where I have to move the unit all the way to the edge of the desk, and it sometimes falls off. So that may be something to consider, especially on these budget units. It's quite often the way they provide power is through like a wall wart that has a cable. And those cables are usually 4 or 5 feet long, which for me is a huge pain in the butt. So bring this on any day. Let's go ahead and turn this on. You'll see we get a blue light. And let's go over to the output here so we can all share that together. So we'll go over to HDMI 3. And hopefully we'll get a MINISFORUM logo up here in just a moment. There it is. Glenn Rose joins us and says hello from Minnesota. There's Darnell Reyes saying hello. Mickey's Tech Spot says hello. Welcome in, everyone. In just a minute, we should get the out-of-box experience appearing on the screen from Windows 11. Everything you're seeing is normal and expected on a brand new machine. In fact, I would say if it's not like this, you probably bought a used or refurbished machine, or you built one from a custom builder who set it up for you. So again, you have to be patient during this first-time startup process. And what I should do is put myself in the corner so you know we're not losing a signal or anything. Let me go down here. It's still on, right? Yeah, it's still booting. Give that a second. Rick Lakes saying hello from Minnesota. Welcome in, Rick. Who else do we have joining us here? Now at this point, I do expect something to be on the screen. I don't know why it's not happening, so I'm going to just double check my HDMI cable by pulling it out and plugging it back in again. Stuff like this on a first boot typically does take a bit longer than what we're used to. And as you can tell, somehow the connection with the capture card in this unit, during the process, I missed something because we're already at the setup screen. We're supposed to see the toilet bowl flushing thing, and you know what I mean? We didn't see any of that because the screen was black for too long. And just sometimes unplugging a cable and plugging it back in is the solution. But if this was just plugged into a normal computer monitor, that likely would have never happened. Sometimes we do run into some issues with the capture card, and that's not on MINISFORUM as far as I'm concerned. That's That's just the cost of sometimes we see this weird idiosyncrasies when we're trying to plug it into something it wasn't designed to be plugged into. The capture card is emulating a monitor, and much like any other emulation, it usually works quite well. Sometimes, though, there can be a little bit of inconsistency depending on, well, could everything to do with a cable could be failing, or I didn't have it plugged in all the way, or there's a compatibility thing that happened between them. In either case, that's nothing wrong with that. So let's go through our out-of-box experience together. Let's get rid of camera 1. And you can see we've got an international install of Windows 11 here, which is fine. It's typical because they sell the same machine in countries around the world. So we'll just go through the standard process. United States, US keyboard, skip a secondary keyboard. We're not going to put it on the internet right now, so I'll click right down here that I don't have internet. It wants me to accept their license agreement, which you don't have a choice unless you want to put Linux on it or something. But if you want Windows, it's accepted, or you don't use Windows. For the username, I'll just put in the generic name of user. I will leave the password blank, so it'll just boot right up to the desktop. With these settings, I like to leave location on, so it'll always synchronize my date and time, even during daylight saving time, or the natural progression or loss of seconds and minutes of the local clock. This will sync it to internet time in the background, so I should never have those problems. And then hit accept. Now it should just go through the process of configuring Windows to my country, to my region, to the local laws of that region. For example, in the European Economic Area, you have the GDPR and stuff that apply, and it needs to know all of this to comply with your country's laws. That's why we go through the out-of-box experience. Once this is done, it'll take us to the desktop, at which point I will plug it into the network. Once I'm plugged into the network, I can then go to Windows Update, and we can look and check some specifications like what version of Windows do we have, what's the build number. All the drivers should already be installed. And this thing is whisper quiet. I don't even hear it, by the way. That's why I had to pull it up and see if the light was on. It's completely dead silent, at least to my ears in this room. There's nothing. We'll give this just a minute. You know, it's funny, I hear the fans over on the streamer. Nothing on this. I picked up rocks and held them to my ear that were louder than that. I don't hear anything at all. Here we go. All right, so now we've got our Windows desktop. I'm going to grab my Ethernet cable and we'll plug it in. Once I plug it in, you should see all those ghosted icons fill in based on, again, the laws of the country we're in. Many of these icons that appear here in the United States are illegal in the European Union or in areas of GDPR. So let me just plug into either one of the Ethernet ports, doesn't matter. Just like the HDMI port, doesn't matter. Just like the USB ports, doesn't matter. Pick which one you want. The only difference is the USB ports up front are faster. So you might want to just save those for faster devices. Once it connects to the internet, you'll see those icons filled in. Now let me go to Windows Update and tell you what, let's get rid of camera 1 so you can see everything. And when we go to Windows Update, we go to Settings, and then Windows Update, and we'll hit check for updates. And while it's checking, I like to turn that option on. These are my personal preferences. I'm not telling you how to do it. I am showing you how I, as a professional, set up computers for my clients that I have to support for the entire lifetime of the computer. Everybody needs to be set up the same, or I'm going to have a hell of a time supporting them when they call 16 months from now, for any reason. So we're going to go through all the standard processes here, including I disable the delivery optimization because I think it's great if you're in a company with a lot of computers, but if you're in a home, that's pointless. I also go under System. I go under Notifications. I scroll all the way down to where it says Additional Settings. and I uncheck these boxes so it won't annoy me by saying, you need to finish setting up your computer, like it'll do in about 6 weeks. This gets rid of that permanently. Every Windows 10 and 11 user should make sure those boxes are unchecked. That's just there to annoy you, at least in my opinion. I want to check our power settings, so I'm going to go over here. We are still downloading updates in the background. We're going to go to Edit, Power. And let's make sure the screen won't go to sleep on us while we're working. It's already set to never. I'll set it for like 2 hours. We'll leave sleep set to never because there's no batteries. There's no reason to put a computer that doesn't have batteries to sleep. Change advanced power settings. No, I'm going to leave that alone. What I can do is stretch this window out, and I should get a, where is it? Oh, I have to hit save settings. Hit save settings. This is what I'm looking for. Change what the power buttons do. And then I'll just set the power button. If it's pressed while the computer's on, I want it to shut down. There's no longer sleep buttons on computers, so this is irrelevant, but I'm going to say do nothing anyway. Okay, we go back to Windows Update, see how we're progressing. These are the downloads we're getting. If I right-click on the Start menu and go to System, we'll be able to see the processor and the specs here. So we've got an Intel Core 304, 16 gigs of RAM. 128 gigs of that RAM is being borrowed by the graphics card built into the CPU. 500 gigs of storage. And it is Windows 11 Pro, in case you were wondering. 25H2, and the build number is 26200-8457. So that's pretty new. There are some updates missing, but we've seen computers that are missing over a year's worth of updates. This one's only missing a couple of months. That's impressive. A little bit about the manufacturer and how you can get help is here as well. If we look under the device manager, oh, a video driver's going in. That's why the screen is being resized. So we have to wait a second. Windows Update is putting a newer video driver in. So be patient. Okay, let's right-click on the device manager, or right-click on the Start button, go to the device manager, and we can identify who makes our network cards. So if we come down under Network Adapters, right there, we've got both of the RJ45 jacks in the back are made by Intel. They are I226-V. And the Wi-Fi is also made by Intel. It's the AX211, providing us Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.4. So all Intel based. And of course, under the processor, we should see 5 CPUs. There's the Nero processor, which again, at this price point is unheard of. And then under processors right here, we should see 5 CPUs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, go back to Windows Update. Let's see how we're progressing. Progressing as expected. Everything's going very well. And we just wait at this point, as you should with any new computer. Now, as I mentioned, instead of doing this while Windows isn't going through the out-of-box experience and you're stuck waiting, you're not stuck waiting here. If you had software you wanted to install, printers you wanted to install, email you wanted to configure, you can just let this run in the background while you continue to get on with setting your computer up. We're not doing any of that on this live video, so we're just going to leave this screen up. We'll wait for it to be finished and restart, and then we can run some benchmarks on it. And we can even open it up and we can take a look in the BIOS and stuff like that. So let me jump back over to camera 1 while we're waiting. And my question for those of you watching here and joining us in the chat room is, do you have any questions for me about this or other tech questions while we wait? Lugrania wants to know, what would you recommend for an Ethernet switch? I need to run my Xfinity box and security camera from the same Cat6 cable, if this is the best choice. You know, you can buy wireless security cameras. They're not expensive. But buying a switch is also cheap. You know, if we go to Amazon, let me just give you an example, because if those are the only 2 things you need, then you just need a 4 or 5 port switch. They're like $10. And it almost doesn't matter who makes it. They're all pretty much the same these days. But if we jump over to, let's open up a new tab and let's go to Amazon. And then let's bring the new tab up on the screen. Let's look for a 5-port network. I'm trying to type with one finger. Network switch. Okay. This Netgear, which is a name brand, is $13.49, currently on sale for the next 10 hours. After which it goes to $16, which, you know, you're going to save $2.50. But hey, $2.50 is $2.50. So this one is gigabit. Probably don't need anything faster than that. If you need to go 2.5 gig, I don't know what speed your network is. Your internet service, if you're getting 2,500 or 2,000. But if you're getting 1,000 or less, this is all you're going to need. There are probably even cheaper options. Here's one for $8.99 made by Ugreen. And Ugreen is also a reputable company, so under $10. That's all you'd need, Luke. And I would probably buy the Ugreen one. You maybe even to get them cheaper from no-name brand. You know, TP-Link is a good name brand as well. $10. This has power over Ethernet. If your camera needs power through the Ethernet, then you need to buy a switch that provides power through the Ethernet cable. That's often used with cameras and VoIP telephones in offices. I don't think you're going to get much cheaper than that. In fact, for me to send you an empty box from Arizona to Vermont would probably cost me about $9. So that's a hell of a deal to get the unit and the shipping. At least in my opinion, anyway. Hope that helps you out. Let me know if you have any other questions, follow-up questions about that. Edward Bass says hello in the chat. Tanya Jonathan joining us says hello. Welcome in. Official Tim Tech says, I just dropped a like. Hey, thank you. Yeah, if you enjoy this content and you want to encourage me to make more, all you got to do is hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and then there's a bell icon to turn on your notifications and set that up the way you prefer. You can get some notifications, all notifications, or no notifications. The notifications aren't me sending you a message. The notifications are, hey, Carey Holzman just posted a new video, or Carey Holzman just went live. If you want that to be, if you want to be made aware of it, you need to tell Windows it doesn't default to that. And then, of course, in your Windows, in your YouTube settings, you can define if you want to be told via an email, if you want to be told via a push notification on your phone. You have to turn all that on. Otherwise, it'd be harassment if you didn't. So if you're feeling harassed, you have to turn it off. No one else can do it for you. Glenn Rose joins us from Minnesota. Welcome in, Glenn. Darnell Reyes says hello. Bernie says hello, along with Sam Fudge joining us in Keystone Cultivators. Welcome in, everybody. Got a nice full chat room today. I love it. Our updates are, gotta go this way. Our updates are still going. Par for the course. You know, this wouldn't matter if this was a $10,000 computer. These updates still, this is on Microsoft that's causing these updates to take so long, not the computer. Just so you know, we have a fast internet. It's not us. It's not the machine. This is Microsoft. Now, Microsoft is coming out with some of the feature updates. Remember how I said Windows 10 won't get any more feature updates? Well, with LTSC especially, but certainly ever since support ended officially, Windows 10 doesn't get any more enhancements. It's just on life support. That's it. Bare minimum life support. So some of the advancements features that have come to Windows 11 just in the last couple months have been amazing and incredible. You'll soon be able to move your taskbar around. Things are a lot more responsive and faster. New features, when you right-click in the context menu, all of this is a process Microsoft in-house is referring to Windows 11 K2. And K2 involves feature updates being released over a series of months, with each update containing a few more. They make sure those work, polish them, and release the next set. And all that gets bundled in together in a big release called Windows 11 2.6 H2 that should be out this fall. It will be out this fall, usually October, November. That won't happen in Windows 10. Okay, so if you want to continue to sort of, hold on to the past and remain vulnerable online and be stuck in time with an operating system that no longer evolves, you can do that with LTSC. I wouldn't. If I had a big company with 1,000 employees and it was going to cost a bundle of money to get us to Windows 11, and we already have an IT department we're paying, probably $1 million or more budgeted a year for them, we'll just make it their job to keep sure all the computers are kept up to date no differently than what they were hired to do to begin with. Until such time as it makes financial sense for the company to replace computers or as necessary to go to Windows 11, that's what LTSC is for. That's why it exists. Especially government organizations and schools where budgets are really tight, they might need to stretch that hardware out over a longer period of time. The schools have their own IT departments and they have to follow the regulations and the laws in their cities and counties, states and federal guidelines. And those restrictions cost money to enforce and have certain hardware requirements that must be met at a very minimum, which often pushes the budget as it is past its limit. So for those reasons, LTSC exists, just to give you some examples. Luke says his Lorix security system is new and installed. The cameras themselves are PoE to the box. Thanks for the advice. Appreciate it. Just wanted to be sure that's one I needed. Thank you. Yeah, you don't have to stick with the name brand. You could buy whatever's cheapest. As long as it's gigabit, you're good to go. And if you want the PoE, expect to pay about 3 times more for it. But sometimes they make separate PoE boxes too. So usually it's cheaper to pay the extra for the switch. And it's less cabling, right? Because with PoE, if you've got an adapter, you got another cable. You've got an adapter that can burn out plus the switch. If it's just the switch doing both jobs, then that means that the worst case scenario is you have to replace the switch, which is still relatively inexpensive at $40. These big PoE switches I install for my clients are closer to $400. And sometimes they burn out. It's like a tire. Sometimes it just goes flat and you got to replace it. So my clients not only pay the $400, they pay an additional $400 to keep one new in a box. So if it ever goes down, I can instruct them over the phone how to get them back up and running. Like if I had to get in the car and drive there and do it, they could already have it done. And if they don't have the spare, then there's nothing we can do until we get a spare. That may mean running over to Best Buy, buying whatever's available at whatever price they have it, and then going from Best Buy back to the office. They're done for the day. That's all I'm trying to say. If they order the spare now, best thing they could ever hope for is they never need it. Same as insurance. You buy the insurance and hope you never have to use your insurance. But if you don't have the insurance and something happens, you're going to wish you had insurance, but by then the milk is spilled and it is what it is. So I advise all my clients for anything that's mission critical to the operations of the phone system and the network, we have duplicates. So by comparison, you buying one, even if it was PoE at $40, you have no idea how cheap that is compared to what my clients in my world pay. Buster's saying, good night, everybody. I'll catch up tomorrow. See you then. I have a meeting. He has a meeting with his oncologist tomorrow. He's going to update during the members only tomorrow. Thank you, Buster. Get some rest, my friend. Always good to see you. Let's hope for some good news tomorrow. David Graham said, Lanterns, episode 2 is on tonight. Yeah, that's the new show on HBO featuring the comic book hero Green Lantern. Airs every Sunday. Gerald Cochran says where he works, they still have CNC machines running Windows 7. Yeah, well, business use case scenarios would dictate that. But for a home user to voluntarily do it is profoundly unwise. At least in my opinion. If a client called me and said, I'm a home user running Windows 7, can you help me? I cannot. Nor can Geek Squad, nor can any reputable business that cares about liability, accountability, lawsuits, malpractice, or even just their reputation. When somebody wants you to do something that can jeopardize your career or the reputation of your career, it's more profitable for you to say no. Sorry, I can't do it. There are ways to work on Windows 7 computers in businesses where we air gap them away from the internet. And if they can't do that, then we have to put in specialty firewall devices that are quite expensive and require constant upkeep to keep watching, because the threats change. There's like 1 million new threats released online around the world each and every day. And the ones that were released yesterday don't go away. They don't fade out. They're there forever. And then there's another, and there's another, and there's another. And it's just more and more threats every day. With an operating system that's not getting updated, you're just holding onto a hand grenade with the pin pulled. I mean, sure, you can hold that down as long as you can hold it down, but eventually you're going to tire. Eventually you're going to be distracted for a second and let go, and boom, it's just a matter of time. At least if you're connected to the internet and you don't have proper security in place, which would have to be double duty. You could set up something like this, for example. This could protect it. But this would also require maintenance and upkeep. So it starts costing you. What's the cost to replace it versus what's the cost to maintain it? It's just like a car. You could have a car that you have to put more money into constant repairs, plus the inconvenience every time it breaks. That ends up costing more than the car is currently worth if you sold it, where it suddenly makes more sense to go out and buy a newer car. That becomes cheaper and more financially sound as an investment. Some people will pour $10,000 into a $500 car. And then they claim they never have any money. They just don't know how to use money. They were never taught. And they're making emotional decisions, and then they're talking about, how tough financially it is for them, because they really aren't educated, in my opinion, on how to properly spend and stay within the lanes of their budgets. They live outside of their means. Yeah, that doesn't mean you don't have any money. I could have the same money you do, but you might be buying expensive luxury items and I'm not. And you're saying I'm always broke and can't do anything, and I'm like, I'm not rich, but I can still go out and do stuff, but I didn't waste all my money on that other stuff. You sacrificed one thing for another. That was your choice. You can't get to have it all. You can have anything you want. You just can't have everything you want. All right, at least most of us. And update's still going really good here. We got this big update going in. This one does take a while. Like I said, even on the most high-end computer, you're going to be waiting for this one. If we had other things to do, we could be doing them right now on the computer. Like I can set that resolution. It looks like we're in 4K. So while we're waiting, hard for me to sit still. I'll right-click on the desktop, go to display settings, and let's drop that to 1080. Keep that. Go to 125%. Head back to Windows Update. There we go. Much better. No, I could probably resize that a little bit. Just the way I see the camera overlapping that corner is a little bit much. Let's grab a corner. I grab the corner? Well, I'll just grab the edge then. Then I'll grab the bottom. One way or another, we'll get there. There we go. While we're waiting, I can also grab my USB flash drive and copy over some utilities. Like I said, we don't have to sit there and stare at it. We can keep working and keep moving forward. Click on that. Click on this. We want CPU-Z to just kind of verify all of our hardware and BIOS version. Crystal disk info, I like that. Crystal disk mark, portable version, of course, everything's portable. HWI we'll use for monitoring temps when we run Cinebench, which we will get to. That's a big one. You see that's fast USB there. I think that's a 10 gig per second USB, so that'll move over pretty quick. I always install VLC on all new systems, so we'll get that moved over. And what else? Oh, Uncle Carey's Windows 11 Optimizer. We got to have that. That's a utility I sell for 20 bucks that optimizes a bunch of settings in Windows that you can do by hand, but this will do it about 75 times faster than a human can and not forget any settings. So I use it because of the sheer number of machines I work on. But if you buy this, we have a link for it in the video notes below. You're not only supporting the channel, but you can use it on any number of computers indefinitely. But it only works on Windows 11. And when Windows 11 support ends, we will also end support for it. It'll still work on Windows 11 if you choose to run it after support ends, but it's really just meant to run once. It modifies some settings, and unless you have a reinstall or some major Windows update resets things, you can always run it again and again. It's a run once thing. You apply it, you reboot, you're done. It doesn't stay installed. When you're done with it, you can delete it off the desktop. Just always keep it on a flash drive or something and use it on as many computers as you want. My only request is you don't give it away to your friends. You can run it on your friends' computers all day long. That doesn't bother me. And if your friend says, well, that's cool, I'd like it, say, well, here's where you can buy one. Please don't steal from this guy. He's not some big corporation. Not that that makes it okay anyway. It's still wrong, but it's something he's going to feel in his pocketbook where a corporation may not notice it. So just out of courtesy. Also, if you want to see another Windows optimizer, it's got to be worth us to invest the time and money to create it. If the optimizer doesn't make any money, then we'll focus our efforts on something else. Common sense. It's all just common sense. All right, let's see. Again, still waiting for things to finish up here. If you have questions, tech-related questions or questions about the mini PC, this is your time to ask. We're about an hour into today's broadcast, and I still would like to be able to open it up and take a look inside, even though we've more or less seen the inside of it from their pictures online. I'm curious how it opens. We can also see what the BIOS looks like. Is it going to be text-based or graphical-based? This is a pre-production model. These are not yet available for sale, but I guess they're for sale, but they won't ship until next month. So, we're getting a very early look at it here. We could also wipe and reinstall Windows and see what we can do for drivers. Whatever we run out of time and don't have time to do today, we'll follow up in a part 2, probably next Sunday. Will likely be when we do that. Now, other manufacturers will be coming out with this Core 3 chip, the 304. What's the name of the chip? I've already forgotten the name of the chip. Hold on, let me double check myself. Just go over to System. So right click the Start button, go to System. And our CPU, yeah, the Intel Core 304. So you're going to find competitors coming out with their models featuring this chip. If they send us, if any of those manufacturers send us one for review, this is what we'll be comparing it against. And they will likely be very similar inside. It's the outside that makes them different. The thickness, the noise, what kind of power adapter they include, what warranty they have, and overall, what's the case look like. But inside, they'll be the same. They might choose different networking components. And I expect we'll be seeing a few of these because with the budgets and the economies being what they are, people want something decent, but they can't afford anything that they really, really want, most people. So this is something that as a new baseline for budget that is much, much better in so many ways than the previous budget chips from AMD and Intel. But that's to be expected with any new design. You would expect it to just get better, faster, and if it's not cheaper, you're at least getting more for the same amount of money, which is a way of saying it's cheaper, right? Let's go back over to, let's see, Windows Update. Oh, it's right in front of me. Duh. Here we go. We are getting there. Almost there. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat room. Banana Ear says it's crazy to be shopping for this and you to be live right now. Well, I'm live every Sunday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Nothing unusual about that. That's the standard schedule. It's been that way for a long time, but welcome in. How does this compare to an X1 Pro 370 in token speed? Well, it depends on the size of the LLM that you're using. So token speeds will vary. But I also want to say that there's also a significant difference in price. So if you were to buy an X1 Pro 370, where this starts at $263, something like that, the X1 Pro 370 price is what 3 times that or something? So I would imagine your token speeds are probably about 3 times. It's all going to be relative. That would be the gist of it. Let me ask, just out of curiosity, what was the model we were talking about here? X1 Pro 370. How does X1 Pro 370 compare? And let's see what the AI tells us. The MINISFORUM M2 Air-304 and the MINISFORUM AI X1 Pro 370 target entirely different tiers of computing. Well, the M2 Air-304 is an entry-level, low-power 0.47 liter micro mini PC designed for simple desktop tasks, local routing, or quiet home servers. The AI X1 Pro 370 is a full-fledged high-performance AI workstation and light gaming machine. It's like you're asking what's the difference between this Prius and this Ferrari. Like you're comparing apples and oranges. But that being said, how many tokens can each do by comparison? I'm just curious. That's such a vague question, right? Depending on a number of settings, but let's see what the AI says here. For running a large language model like Llama, Ollama, or LM Studio, memory bandwidth is going to be your biggest hardware bottleneck for generation speed, or tokens per second, followed by compute capacity, which would be your iGPU or NPU. By comparing those two extremes, with a Llama 3.2 with a 1 billion, forget the terminology, quantization, you're looking at 15 to 25 tokens per second. And on the AI X1 Pro, under the same circumstance, 65 to 75. So it's about 3 times more money. It does about 3. It's just what I said. What you pay is what you get. So it's pretty easy in your head to calculate this out anytime you're shopping online. Cheaper means you get less. More money means you get more. How much more? Usually how much more you're paying equals how much more you get. Usually. Once you start hitting extremes, just like a Ferrari, then you're paying a tax on, you know, the bleeding edge stuff that's much more profitable to the manufacturers. And they sell much smaller quantities of Ferraris at a higher profit margin. That's pretty extreme. And then that's where the price to value ratio goes out the window. Let's see. Does it tell us anything else? So you've got Quen and Llama and prompt ingestion, context speed. Essentially, the M2 Air-304 will do 38 to 48 gigabits per second bandwidth on that single DDR5 RAM module. And the AI X1 Pro 370 uses dual channel DDR5, which is 5600 megatransfers. That translates to 89 to 100 gigabits per second bandwidth. That doubles the theoretical ceiling for generation speed. The M2 Air-304 lacks a powerful compute engine for tensor math, offloading layers to its basic Intel iGPU yields minimal gains, forcing execution primarily on the 5 CPU cores, versus the AI X1 Pro 370, which has the Radeon 890M iGPU that supports ROCm Vulkan acceleration. And you can allocate most of your system RAM directly as VRAM if you want to get the most out of the GPU RAM, the GPU memory. So that would be in the BIOS setting for people that want to use it for that purpose. So this will do it, right? But it's going to do it very slowly. Other machines of this caliber, other entry levels, don't even have an NPU, period, end of story. So don't mistake the fact that it can do it, that it's in any way comparable to something that's designed out of the gate at a higher price to perform well for that kind of a task. This will perform well for other tasks where you wouldn't want to spend $1,000 just to make a soft router. You wouldn't want to spend $1,000 just to have a media PC. You wouldn't want to spend $1,000 just to have a workstation at the office, and you need 20 or 30 of them if you're a pretty small office. The amount of savings you're going to have by dropping to something that's this price is about 50% savings while not losing any productivity from your employees. So how you want to use the machine dictates what you should be spending and what you should expect from that. So I hope that clarifies it. But you really, just in my opinion, you might as well say, well, let's compare the tool shed in the backyard to the mansion in Beverly Hills. They're entirely different purposes, price points for different needs. And you should, it should be pretty well understood that's suggested in price. You should know, based on the price, what you're getting. But I appreciate the question. Alex Cheek said, Carey, I just had someone in my family buy a 6th gen Intel off Amazon with Windows 11 loaded from the seller. How did that happen? It's easy to circumvent Windows security and Windows 11 rather, security and hardware requirements. Rufus will do that. It's very simple, and the information on how to do that's out there. Some sellers are just very unscrupulous. They don't care. And many buyers are very cheap. So you have buyers that are greedy. They expect that they're getting a computer that they believe to be the same as any other computer because they don't understand what they're buying. All they know is they understand the price. This one's cheaper, so I'll buy the cheaper one. That's greed. The seller is saying, I know people are greedy, and the best way to deal with greedy people, in their opinion, is to also be greedy because they deserve it. This is often the mentality of the seller. I'm not forcing anybody to buy my old junk. And if they believe me and they buy it from me, the secondhand junk, it's all used secondhand junk, because they're too cheap and they're too greedy, then I don't feel guilty about being cheap and greedy too. They deserve each other. That's my opinion. Alex says, I told him to send it back and get one that I had originally told him to get that is Windows 11 compatible. Alex, I wouldn't have told him anything. I would have initially said, listen, you just bought a 10-year-old computer. You do know that, right? That sixth generation is 10 years old. It is not Windows 11 compatible, and they've circumvented the rules so that that computer remains extraordinarily vulnerable online, has no warranty, and there's no support. So if you want to buy it, I can't help you with it. I just want you to know, if you choose to buy this, I cannot help you at all. If you choose to keep it, if you've already ordered it and you don't return it, I can't help you. There's nothing I can do for you. So my recommendation is, if you have 30 days to return that to Amazon, that you get one that I can help you with. But you don't have to if you don't want to. I just want you to know, I'm not being a jerk. I literally cannot help you if you keep that one. You're on your own with that. There's nothing, I don't have a magic wand. I can't go back in time. So once they order that and they decide to keep it, you're out. That's it. I've warned you. You've made your decision. And when they call you in the future with questions, say, remember when I told you I couldn't help you with this? Nothing's changed. I still can't. I'm sorry. I did try to tell you. I did warn you. We have already had this conversation. If they call you again, you repeat it again. Listen, I don't know how many times I have to tell you. I can't help you. Take it to Geek Squad. Listen to what Geek Squad tells you. You know what Geek Squad is going to tell them? That system's too old. We cannot work on it. You can pretty much take it to any professional computer repair place that's run by a company that's got, deep pockets for liability, right? They're more likely going to be sued. They will universally 100% deny any repair on that. Take it home. It's old. Can't work on it. That's it. And whatever decision they make, what do I care? Family member or not, I don't care. It's one thing to say I didn't know. Okay, fair enough. Now you do. You have an opportunity to make it right or stay the course. If you stay the course, I will not be going down the path with you. I'm going this way, you're going that way. Never will our paths cross. If that's the way you want to go, I'm not here to tell you where to go. You go wherever you want. I'm telling you, I'm not going with you. I cannot go with you. And once you get 30 days down that path, there's no coming back from it. You'll have to start over again with another new machine. So are you saving any money? Sounds to me like you're spending more. But I've said my piece. Do you understand me? Yes. What did I say? You said if I keep this, then you won't be able to help me. Okay. I just want to make sure. I don't want to have this phone call in 3 or 6 months. So I make them repeat it back. Did you hear what I said? Yes. What did I say? All right? If you're good with it, I'm good with it. We both know what to expect moving forward either way. And that should be the end of the discussion either way. Done and done. Let them do whatever they want to do. It's their money. Doesn't have to be your problem. That's my advice. David Graham said, trying to update a Windows 11 computer that's 10 years old is a nightmare. It constantly breaks. Well, yeah, because it's not designed for it. But again, people don't know, and they get taken advantage of. That's the way the world's always been, Snake oil salesmen have been around a long time, and they exist today. And people dumb enough to believe it and buy it, they still exist today too. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. There's a sucker born every minute. Archive Underground. I plan on using this PC as a simple Plex server because it has dual gigabit ports. Do you think a single stick of DDR5 8 gig RAM would suffice? I don't see why not. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to do 8K playback or anything, but I would think that would be fine. I'm not sure. Let's ask Gemini what it thinks. Let me go over to Gemini and say, would the M2 Air-304 with only 8 gig of DDR5 be a good Plex server? And Gemini says, yes. The MINISFORUM M2 Air-304 makes an excellent budget dedicated Plex media server, even with just 8 gigs of DDR5 RAM, provided you leverage hardware acceleration. The primary reason is it punches above its weight class with the Wildcat Lake CPU, which includes Intel's dedicated QuickSync video or QSV engine and the AV1 HEVC hardware decoding capabilities. It also has a low power draw. It's under 10 watts when the unit's idle, making it ideal for a 24/7 home server that won't bloat your electric bill. And the dual 2.5 gig LAN offers high bandwidth connectivity for local network streams or link aggregation if it's connected to a network attached storage array. I don't know why you'd need any dual LAN for a Plex server. That doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe you've got a weird configuration. I can't imagine streaming anything off Plex, any music or movies that require more than a 1 gig connection. So a 2.5 gig single connection is 2.5 times. And I can't imagine you have an internet connection that could support that, or that if you were away that you'd have an internet connection on the other side that could support that. So it doesn't, I can't make heads or tails of that, but you know, you could have something, some other use case scenario that's less common that I'm not familiar with. But the short answer to your question is, and again, thank you for asking. If there's other questions you guys have, this is the time to ask. Will we wait patiently for these updates? Shamim Kajir is joining us from Sweden, pops in our chat room here and says hello and welcome in, along of course with Bajan Guy saying hello. Banana Ear says, I have the X1 Pro, but I want to buy this, put 96 gigs in it, and use it specifically for LLMs. The most amount of RAM that, so I think you've started into a video without watching the beginning. And because you did not watch the beginning, you are talking complete nonsense that we already said you cannot do that. So rather than repeat myself for those arriving late, first of all, welcome in. Always happy to have you. Second, you have a play bar below this video. If I were you, I would recommend you rewind that play bar right now to the beginning so you can hear what this machine can and cannot do. That will probably help you to avoid asking questions that we've already addressed since you've arrived late. Or you can wait till the end of the stream and then go back and watch it at your convenience. Mike Cardone joins us and says hello. Bajan Guy said, it looks like the computer's ready to restart. Well, the restart button has lit up. You can see here, it says it's busy working right now. So if we, where's my mouse? I'm on the wrong, hold on a minute, I'm on the wrong screen. There it is. You see it says installing right here? And do you see it says it's downloading right here? You could restart this and interrupt these processes, but that's just going to make it take longer because it'll have to start over again on a reboot to start reinstalling again. Or it'll finish installing. When we hit restart, it'll say, please wait while Windows installs updates. It'll do one of those two things, and then likely this download will cancel, and when we restart, it'll start over again. So if you would like this to take even longer, then you would restart before it's done. It is an option. I don't know why it's an option, but when this is done, we're going to get a big window on the screen that pops up, big pop-up window that says updates are now finished. You can click OK to restart later or hit restart now. And you cannot miss it. It'll take up the whole center of the screen. That's how you know when it's actually time to restart, if you want to get it over with sooner. If you wish to extend and delay your install, then go ahead and restart it before it's done so it gets to start all over again with what it was busy doing before you interrupted it. So pay attention, because this does make a difference, especially when we're live and we're trying to get it done. The last thing we want to do is make it take longer. So that's how that works. Ralph says, what type and size of solid state drive would you recommend for storing videos? Well, it depends how many videos you have and how much space they take, because you need enough space for what you have. And then depending on how often you're putting or adding new videos, are you adding a gig a month? Are you adding a terabyte a month? So for me, it's like saying, how much gas should I buy? How big is the tank? How often do you drive? So for me, I make videos like this 4 times a week. They're about 40 gigs in size. There's not an SSD on the planet that I can afford anyway that can hold more than about 2-3 months of my content. When we're dealing with large capacity storage, I go to network attached storage and mechanical drives. So my network attached storage is an 8-bay Synology, the 1825. It has 8 24 terabyte drives in it, I think. We've got about 50% full. And as I continue to make content, the file storage isn't getting any bigger. It's only getting smaller the more I fill it. But I bought a lot of time. Unless I start broadcasting 8K videos, then I'll use that capacity up even more quickly. So there's no one answer that suits everyone. It's something you're going to have to figure out. What's your budget? How many videos do you have? How much space do they take up now? No advantage to putting videos on an SSD, by the way. They don't play back. You're not going to watch a 2-hour movie in 20 minutes because it played back faster. Kind of putting movies on or videos on an SSD is sort of like buying better pots and pans and you don't know how to cook. But if it's just a couple videos, it doesn't matter either way. But I do appreciate the question. Sometimes the questions are something you have to tell me. I don't know. I don't know you. So I have no idea how much content you've got. You do. You can look and see what it adds up to. And you'll know you'll need a storage device minimally of that size. And if you want to keep adding to it in the future, you'll need to buffer. How long did it take you to get where you are? Did it take, is this, the accumulation of months or years? And then if you double that amount of space, does that double the amount of time, or are you accruing more and more faster and faster? It's like our cell phones, the picture quality keeps getting bigger and the images are getting larger. So it's not that we're necessarily taking more pictures, but the amount of space each picture takes on your phone is bigger because it's higher quality. And it'll be even higher quality on the next model of phone. Data is something that just grows. It never gets smaller. And well, it's a good idea to delete old data just for the sake of saving some money. If you can delete all those old pictures you don't want, maybe they're blurry or it's a bad photo, just delete it. Or maybe it's a photo that's not that important to you, just delete it. So you have room for new photos. Because otherwise you might go to use your phone, take a picture of something really important, it says you're out of space, and then what are you going to do? Because if you wait till then to then make some space, your Kodak moment will have gone and passed and you missed it. So it's a matter of balance based on your priority, your budget, and your values. Carey, what speed is your connection? We're at, our download speed is 2.5 gigabits, which is the fastest they offer in Phoenix where we are. 2.5 gig. Most people have 1 gig. Vast majority of internet provided by the cable company is 1 gig. There's also speeds slower than that. I think they go down to 300, but we're at 2,500. Why do you ask? Dustin Fuller says hello in the chat. Ralph says, I'm a content creator. I was asking for the videos that I record. I record in the morning and I don't want to fill up the hard drive on my computer. So depending on the length of the videos, right? If these are just recordings of you talking into a webcam, they're probably pretty small. If you're broadcasting 4K, you've got a lot of overlays, or it's gaming stuff and it's a lot more higher bit rate. The best thing you could do, in my opinion, is upload it to YouTube, right? Let YouTube be your backup. You can always re-download the videos back from YouTube. If you can afford an external storage drive, I would buy the biggest mechanical external storage drive you can afford. That's it. And right now, all of that stuff's very expensive. Because of the AI bubble we're currently in, it's sort of like asking me what's a good restaurant to go eat at during the middle of the pandemic, when a lot of restaurants were closed. It's sort of, your timing on this is really, really bad. If you can wait until the bubble is over, another year or so, you'll be able to get a drive much more affordably. But if you need it now and you've got the budget for it, whatever your budget allows for is what you should be buying, in my opinion. And it should not be a solid state drive. That would be the worst decision that I think you could make. Solid state drives, people pay for speed, not capacity. When you're storing backups, speed doesn't matter. What you need is capacity. So you can spend the same amount of money for something fast or the same amount of money for something large capacity. And from your description, you want capacity. A lot of content people create, whether they realize it or not, doesn't really have any value after about a month or two after you make it. If I made a video about a Windows update problem, okay, so let's say Windows comes out with an update and it's crashing computers, and I make a video saying, hey, just so you guys know, this Windows update causes this problem. This is the fix for it. Within about 30 days, Microsoft will have that fixed. That makes that video completely obsolete and unnecessary, and actually causes damage potentially for anybody watching it, not realizing they're watching old, obsolete content. Because all they have to do is get the latest Windows update, it fixes it for them, and that video is now just trash. When you make a video, like let's say it's a recipe, and you say, I don't know what kind of videos you make, but say you're showing people how to make a loaf of bread, that video is good forever. But if your dietary interests change and now you want to make gluten-free or low-carb bread, that may be a trend, like keto is a trend right now. And the video could do really well, and then after a certain amount of time, the trend dies away. And well, there'll always be a few people interested. Leaving it up, you'll maybe get 1 view every 2 months or something. So if you didn't back that up and you lost it, who cares? It's old. It's like keeping stale, moldy food. Just toss it away and go buy some new food. But it depends on the content you make. But most of it, I would say you're probably wasting your time backing it up. Most content on YouTube is very easily replaced with something more up to date. And the older the video is, the less likely it's going to get viewed very often, negating any point of value to spend $100 to save videos that might earn you back $2.50. Like it doesn't make any sense. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. But again, I don't know your content. Maybe you're making historical content to pass on to heirs in the family, and to say, hey, here's what it was like when your grandpa was alive. I don't know. But I can't imagine people would want to watch 200 hours of that. They might love their grandpa, but you know, that's enough. We get it. Raphael says, thanks, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. So some of my content has what I would say legs, where it can stand up on its own a lot longer. Most of it, like let's take this MINISFORUM here. This isn't even out yet. So this video is going to gain interest more so now than it will in a year. So if I lose the video for some reason, if the YouTube channel got deleted and I didn't have a backup, which I do, but if I didn't, really, who cares? If I have the backup, who cares? Is it worth even putting back? Is it worth my time to put it back? Maybe. You know, it's hard to say what the future will hold, but if it's anything like the past, they'll have newer models that are this price that are faster, and people won't care about that unless they bought one a year earlier and they were looking for a teardown video or for details because they're late to the party. But that's so infrequent, it doesn't justify the video's existence financially. Oh, because 2 people watched it this month. I mean, I'm sure those 2 people really appreciate it, but those 2 people probably didn't pay a dime to watch it, so they're not owed anything. You know what I mean? Like if it's there, fine. If it's not there, well, you didn't pay for it anyway, so what do you expect? But that's just the way it is for me, because I have over 1,600 videos since I've been doing this here on YouTube since 2009. In some videos, I've just deleted entirely because they're so out of date. They can only cause damage. They can only cause a misunderstanding when people, oftentimes viewers, they don't recognize the age of the video. It happens more often than you. Excuse me. It happens more often than you could believe. Somebody will ask a question in the comments, right? 3 years later, someone will reply to them. Clearly, the person doing the replying has no idea what the date is. They're not looking at the date of the video. And the person who left that comment hasn't been back in 3 years. You think they're going to know you replied to them? Sometimes people leave a comment like, I bought this computer today on Amazon for only $200. 5 years later, somebody says, where did you get that for $200? Because they're not paying attention to how old the comment is. When you put something on the internet, it is there around the planet forever and ever. So I can't stop somebody from taking my content and republishing it other places, but I can take down content I feel is irresponsible to keep the content up. That's just my morals. If another content creator makes a video about how Windows updates are breaking an SSD, or a Windows update is breaking SSDs, and it's completely a lie, and they make another video saying, oh, sorry, it turns out that was a lie, but they leave the original video up, in the following years, the months and years that follow, someone's going to be watching that first video for the first time, thinking there's a Windows update that breaks SSDs, never see the follow-up video that says, oh, wait a minute, turns out it's not true. After they swore up and down it was true, and the viewers are freaking out. The right thing to do is to take the video down, but if the content creator did that, that wouldn't make them any money anymore. Some content creators are like, hey, 1 view is 1 more penny than I had before. It's not even a penny, but some content creators, if it's a fraction of a penny, I'm not going to throw that away. I'm taking that fraction. They're that petty. And in the meantime, they completely isolate themselves from all of the damage they cause from misinformation that they later corrected, but left the incorrect video up knowingly, willingly, willfully. So that's the other danger, right? So let's say something happened to the YouTube channel, and the content creator puts all of his old content or her old content back on. They're right back to putting misinformation or outdated information. And what's worse is your upload date will be the date you did your restore, which would make it even harder for somebody watching the video to know how old it is. In the beginning of all my videos, I always tell you the day, the date, and the year. I figure if you're not paying attention to what's written under the video, or if the video was republished, if I republish it a year from now, it tells you in the beginning of every video I make. Welcome in. Today is August 23rd, 2026. It's Sunday. My name is Carey Holzman. Every single time. Why do you think I do that? Wow, this is taking a very, very long time, much longer than I expected. I'll tell you what, I think we have the gist of what to expect here. Because we're running out of time, I think what we're going to do, I think what I'm going to do, you should just shut it down. Let's see if we can get it open, see what that entails. Take a look at the inside and take a look at the BIOS. On part 2 next week, we should, I'll give you the benchmark results. I'll let this finish after hours. And between now and part 2, I'll run Cinebench and do all the testing. And I'll save the results, including the Crystal Disk Mark results. And I'll share them with you. And then we'll wipe Windows completely clean and reinstall it fresh to see what the driver situation looks like. Okay? So this doesn't need to finish. Now that I'm really thinking about it. I don't mind doing it if it's, you know, not going to take as long, but we've spent more time waiting on this than the rest of everything else we've covered in the video. And I don't see a lot of questions coming in to keep us distracted. So let's just pull the plug. And I'll unplug this and we'll go to full screen on camera 1. Full screen on camera 1. Come on, camera 1, where are you? There I am. And let's just unplug everything. Oops. All right. So, how do we open this? This is completely sealed, except for these rubber feet, which I'm assuming there's screws underneath. I am not a fan of this method, but on a budget PC, what do you expect? There's probably screws underneath the rubber feet, and the rubber feet are with an adhesive that sometimes peels off. When it's new and still really flexible, usually there's no damage, but as these age and become brittle and the adhesive gets really, really strong and adheres to the plastic, it might tear the adhesive, and then you're going to have to figure out another way to stick these feet. There's no spare feet. I wish there was a hole in the foot, and there is a little groove right here with an arrow, if you can see it, that you would stick a spudging tool or a guitar pick or something soft in there that's plastic and pop the lid. But we've got to get the screws out first. These 2 holes are for the VESA mounting bracket if you wanted to mount this behind a monitor or on a desk. So my question is, how difficult do these feet? Usually I can use my finger strength, but man, if you've got any sort of dexterity problems with your fingers, you're probably going to need to use a tool. The reason I don't like using a tool is it can score up. And even though it's the bottom, nobody sees it. It's brand new. And as a professional, when I work on people's equipment, it would be very disrespectful to score up somebody else's property. If you're a professional, you should be able to do it without scratching it. And you should do it with the same courtesy and respect for yourself as you show your customers who are trusting you. So this adhesive is really stuck. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is why. Hold on, let me go to camera 1, and I'll walk this over here. This is why I hate these rubber feet covering screws. There's no reason these rubber feet could not have simply been moved over or down away from the screw. But watch when I lift this up. Do you see the adhesive? It's sketchy. That did finally come off clean. And then there's the screw hidden underneath. Now that we know the screw is there, a little secret that you could do, whoops, don't worry, there's nothing fragile in here. is you could just peel back this one side to expose the screw and leave the rest of the foot attached. Sometimes that's worse though, because if you leave the foot bent like that, it could kind of remember that position, and then it starts to wobble on the desk. So either way, you know, it's just something to consider. And let's get these removed. Let's go back to camera 2. Now, a lot of times on these mini PCs, when they do require the foot to be removed, they give you extra feet. But this is a budget machine, so you're not getting extra nothing. And these aren't feet that you can just go to Amazon and buy. You don't have to. In other words, we could go to Amazon and we could buy rubber feet to put on this, but they won't fit in these recess points. And if I were going to buy rubber feet off Amazon, we just have to make sure they're at least this thick or thicker. Well, maybe not. There's no air vents under here. Sometimes you got to watch for air vents. You don't want to block the air vents. This one doesn't have any. The air vents are on the sides. CPU's up here. Storage and RAM are down here. But yeah, you could go on Amazon and buy some black round feet and just stick them on wherever you want them. Try and keep them evenly spaced to prevent wobbling. And then you'll never have to remove them and get to the screws again. I'll tell you something else which is really strange. I've never seen this before. Those screws are all in different places. You know how I said you could have just peeled back the rubber foot? Check this out. This is really weird. Look at the position. You know what? I got to go to camera 1 because the autofocus on 2 is locked. Let's go to camera 1. All right. Pay close attention where this screw is. Way up. See the recess? But then look at this one, it's kind of in the middle. But then look at this one, it's kind of lower. See, it's lower. And then look at this one. They're not in the same place. My OCD is really, really tingling. There's not a single screw that sits in the center of the rubber foot. Not one of them. They're all offset individually and uniquely from one another. It's the same screw, doesn't matter if you mix the screws up, but it's not like you could just put a hole in the rubber foot so it lines up with this screw and then do the same thing to these others because they won't line up. You'd have to make a hole in the foot in a different location depending on the position. And then when you put the rubber feet back on, better make sure you've rotated them correctly and placed them in the right corner, or you're going to cover up the screw again. That's not a good design. I'll tell you something else you could do. If you really wanted to be cheap about it, you could just place the rubber foot right beside the recess, right there, and just leave it there forever. And if you did that, place the other one here and over here and over here, then you'd set it down. It's going to sit. I mean, I haven't put them all on, so it's going to wobble. You see what I'm getting at, right? That's all MINISFORUM had to do. Just move the damn foot over a little bit. It's if the screw was exposed where you could see it, if it was on the top, this would make more sense. But it's on the bottom where no one's ever going to see it. Even if you mount this against something, the mounting points are on the back. No one's going to see the back. So I don't understand that design, and I will make sure MINISFORUM hears it from me. And that's honestly, they like to hear that from me. That's why they send me the unit, because they know I'm going to be straight up and honest with them. At the same point, this is a budget machine, so it's hard to be a chooser when you're at this price point. There's not much to choose from at this level and this price. So with that, let's go ahead and take these screws out. These are screws that have a shoulder on them. They're much longer than I expected. But they should all be exactly the same. Yep, yeah, they're all the same. So you don't have to put them back in the same holes. And you definitely want to use a magnetic screwdriver. And you can see how that'll lift that screw out for me. That's a proper professional way to work on modern computers. Some people still believe magnets are bad for computers, and those people live in 1991. Now, when it comes to separating the back, towards the back ports, there's an arrow right here. It says rear, tells you to put this towards the rear. And there's a little slot right here. And I have a spudger tool. This one's metal, but you could use plastic. This is from iFixit. And we can just put that little guy right in there and bend up. And carefully take this off, because we don't know if there's any antennas or wires attached to it that we could rip off if we use too much force removing this. Wow. What the heck is going on here? It wants the whole unit out. Look at this. The whole thing wants to come out. See the ports? Why is that happening? It should have... Oh, wait a minute. Something... What it seems like, the reason why these screws are so long is it's doing double duty. It's holding on the back and it's holding the motherboard to the front. And why it's trying to pull the circuit board out looks like there is thermal, like a thermal tape that's on the NVMe drive that's sticking. So we want to be very gentle. We don't want to tear that tape. And we want to peel this back. And that's exactly what it is. We have thermal tape here and here. Oh, this is metal. This is not plastic. Wow, that is heavy. That is absolutely metal. It's probably not magnetic. I don't know, but that's a big heat sink. This is actually the heat sink. So yeah, having rubber feet on it will be important so that there air flows underneath this. That's why there's no vents. That is, listen, that is heavy. All right, and then the whole motherboard can come out because those 4 screws hold this board in. But there's probably Wi-Fi antennas and fans, so we want to be careful. If I want to play with this, I want to be very careful. Those wires are very fragile, and we don't want to tear them. And usually there's little clips along the edges that sit over the circuit board that prevent it from falling out. And I don't know if I will be successful, but usually you can just bend back the plastic away from the ports, and that can help you. Typically you want to get one side out before the other one. I stopped with this side because there's a big heat sink, and it's preventing me from lifting the board straight out. So you probably want to take one side of the board out first. And since the heatsink doesn't run along the entire length of it, I should be able to just take the front of it out by lifting the front face away from the ports. But again, if you put too much force on this, you may tear your Wi-Fi antenna wires. They'll just tear right off. They're very fragile. There's really no point in me doing this other than it just... Normally, there's other sets of screws that hold this down separately. But it is a cost-saving measure, and it is partly how we get to that budget price. It's not just one thing, it's a bunch of little things like that that add up. So we have a clip right here on the plastic that the circuit board is hitting. And so now it tells me basically by examining that these areas here are preventing that board from coming up. So, you know, I should quit while I'm ahead, but my curiosity is, is getting the better of me. I wonder if we could just turn it upside down and pull the plastic away. You see that side wants to come out first, but what's holding it is the CPU heatsink. Let's try going this way with it too. There's really no reason that I can think of that you should need to take this out. Anything that's user serviceable is on this side. So I'm going to just push that back in before I break it. I'm reconsidering what I'm doing. It's brand new and we have more testing, and that would be terrible for me to break it. It wouldn't be professional. If the unit didn't work and we wanted to tear it apart to see how it works, we couldn't break it, I'd be more willing to do that. And then when we seat this back in, we just want to make sure all the ports align across, which apparently isn't sitting right. Probably because I just pinched a wire right down here. That's my guess. And so now the board won't sit because I'm monkeying with it. And when you deal with microelectronics, I hope you have sharp eyes and attention to detail, because it's these little things that you force it, you can pinch that wire, it'll short circuit against the case or against the edge of the circuit board, and then your Wi-Fi won't work so good, or your Bluetooth won't work so good, and you'll say, this Wi-Fi sucks, and you're the one who did it, all right? I'm just saying, if the shoe fits. Yeah, that wire is jammed against the edge between the circuit board and the case wall. So if I pull the case away, that's a plastic case, I can pull that away and re-guide that wire away from the edge of the circuit board. Very gently. Okay, that's better. Now the ports are sitting fine. Just that little tiny thing. Let me come up to camera 1 and give you a close-up of the inside of this bad guy. All right, look at this good thing. We've got name brand storage and RAM. That's a Kingston. Is this focusing? I can't tell. That's a Kingston NVMe drive, and that's Crucial branded memory, which name brand stuff in there. There's not much you can do. You can change this. You can change this. And underneath, you can see our Wi-Fi card. That's our Intel Wi-Fi card right there. These are our ports. So the only reason you'd want to open this up would be to change this or change that. There's nothing you can add. It is just one memory socket. That's all you get, because that's a limited CPU. It's a budget CPU. I hope that's focusing. I can't really tell. It's for the thumbnail. Come on. I don't need this anymore. And let's see. This goes on this way. The arrow says to the rear, so we put this on to the rear. Yeah, the whole case is plastic, but that bottom is metal, so that whole bottom is actually a heatsink. Now, the front of this isn't lining up correctly, so before we use any brute force, which is the last thing we want to do, and remember that thermal tape is really sticking to the top of the components, and you don't want to damage the components, and you don't want to tear the thermal tape or it will affect your cooling. That's why it's best, if you're not real sure with what you're doing, unless you're willing to risk breaking it, understand what you're getting into when you open up these microelectronics. They're not making it easier. I have pinched the same cable again. Now it's pinched on the other side of the circuit board. You know, the minute I put away a tool and say, I shouldn't need this anymore, you know I'm going to need that again every time, right? Murphy's Law. Yeah, that cable's pinched it up against that circuit board really, really, really good. But the good news is the plastic case is very flexible, so we can just temporarily push it aside. And now, hopefully, that front sits down like it should, because we don't want to block off those ports. And you want to check all that before you put this back together, or you'll be opening it right back up again. I'm just going to double check. And I did that because I monkeyed with it. If I should have just left it alone. This cable just wants to keep getting caught. That's really interesting. Frustrating and interesting that there's no tape or anything holding that down. That gray Wi-Fi cable, it's an antenna cable, is designed in such a way that it wants to keep getting trapped right between the edge of the circuit board and the edge of the case. And so if these ports aren't lining up, your question is the challenge for you is to figure out, okay, what's it hitting that's preventing it from sitting flat? Gravity should take over. And if it's just a little bit of adjustment, then tightening the screws will push it down. But But push it down on top of what? I'm grateful that these posts on this bottom piece are taller than the thermal tape, because when I set it down on the counter, that thermal tape would be touching my counter. It doesn't damage it, but it can put dust and debris on the thermal tape, which means the level of its ability to work is slightly hindered depending on any material getting between it and the surface it's trying to cool. Now, let me try this again. Points to the rear. This on. It should sit on there nice and easy. It's probably going to be a little bit squishy with that thermal tape squishing down. That thermal tape is very thick, very unusually thick. So I'm going to just start these screws gently, and I'm going to do opposite corners here to make sure that it sits evenly and doesn't apply more pressure to one side than the other because of the thermal tape. And as I screw this down, I will screw down both corners. It should sit flush on both corners, and it does. That means that when we screw the other two down, they should sit flush as well, unless we've trapped a wire somewhere or we haven't aligned something correctly. Yep, that looks beautiful, just like new. That's closing the gap. So that is creating pressure, downward pressure onto the thermal tape, just getting us a good seal, not even a seal, but good contact patch to the RAM and the solid state drive. And that explains why this is so quiet. I wonder if we run this on a resource heavy task, how hot the bottom of this will get. I imagine it probably will get pretty warm. I don't know why you'd be grabbing the bottom of it while it's running. But the heat's got to be going somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, where is it? It's like checking to see if the refrigerator light goes off when you close the refrigerator door. Is it really going off? Oops. And then, of course, when we put the weight of it onto the feet, especially day after day, week after week, month after month, those will really settle in. The problem is, as this gets older, those rubber feet adhesive becomes less tacky. So if I did this a year from now, being able to get those feet to stick again, probably challenging. You can go on Amazon and you can buy a double-sided cellophane tape that you can cut and fit underneath the foot. You could use glue, but good luck getting the foot off without tearing it in the future. Or you can just replace the feet with some cheap rubber feet from Amazon and just stay away from the screws. And if you need to tear those feet off, I don't know why you would, because they should just be attached once and be done with it. MINISFORUM could have done that right at the factory. So a little disappointed about that, but that's okay. Because if I'm just sitting here telling you how great a product is, and I can't tell you anything that couldn't be improved, you should be suspicious if I'm biased or getting paid. I would be. But if that's my biggest complaint, I'd say that's, as far as complaints go, pretty minor. All right, let's just plug it in, take a look at the BIOS, and then we'll wrap it up for today's video. Plug my keyboard back in there. And let me grab my HDMI cable here. And I don't need Ethernet for this. Let's just turn it on. Here's our power. And let's get into the BIOS. Delete, delete, delete. Let's see if I can catch it on time if I missed it already. Delete, delete. There it is. So we do have the graphical BIOS, the modern UEFI BIOS from MINISFORUM, which we've seen in many models. And we'll go to Setup. And we're in BIOS version 1.02. That's dated June 26th, 2026. Let's see, under Advanced, we probably have, Power and Performance. That's where we can adjust balanced mode versus quiet. There is no performance mode. That's like trying to find the performance mode in your Prius. If it says it's got one, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. You could also do your own power level or PL1, PL2 override if you're a masochist and you want to torture your hardware and throw your money down the toilet. I mean, you're allowed. I don't condone it, but I wouldn't tell you not to. There's our TPM device there for security, yada, yada, yada. Back. CPU configuration, is probably not much we can do in here. The VTD, that's your virtualization. That allows you to run virtual machines. You know, on a lot of budget machines in the past, you could not run virtual machines. But now you can see even the budget processors are letting you do that now. It's not going to be quick about it, but it'll do it. So if we wanted to run a Windows sandbox on this, totally capable. We meet the requirements. Try that on your 6th generation used computer off Amazon. Onboard devices settings. All right, that's our display, internal graphics, etc., etc. All your standard, you know, resize bar support, blah, blah, blah. Nothing exotic here. Pretty standard stuff. Hardware monitor. You're curious what the CPU and the temps of the CPU and system are, and the CPU fan speed. Despite me not hearing it, it is running. That's good to know. It's awfully quiet. Your ACPI information, which is, you know, mostly, you know, if this thing were on and there was a power outage and you weren't home, and while you were away the power came back on, do you want the machine to just stay off, or do you want the machine to stay on, or do you want the machine to return back in whatever state it was in when the power went out? I just leave these all to default. You can set up alarm events and such in the BIOS by having it wake up at 7 in the morning every morning if you wanted to. Again, I don't understand why anybody couldn't just push a power button and just leave the damn thing on, but people are people. Sometimes they want things emotionally when common sense would dictate that's unnecessary. But, you know, in all fairness, there could be a scenario that I've never seen in my life that would justify that. You can enable or disable the UEFI network stack. I don't even know what that does. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know. Then down here under add-ons, this is your information on your Ethernet controllers. They're both the same, identical chips, different MAC addresses. And let's see, under security, this is where we can turn secure boot on. If it's not on, it is on. Under boot, this is where we can choose our boot order and boot override. Probably boot override. Yeah, here's your boot priorities if you have multiple devices to boot from. We just have one. And then save and exit, that's where your boot override is. So if we had a USB drive that we just wanted to boot from, like a rescue for recovering a backup or something, we would not change our boot order. We just do a boot override. And we'd have other options in here. But because we only have one thing to boot from currently, we only have one choice to pick. All right. And then so there's save changes and exit, discard changes. We can hit escape and go back, I think, to the main screen. Exit without saving. And then this will just tell it to boot to Windows or boot to, you know, whatever the default boot device is. This is the UEFI shell for people that are more tech savvy. These are also boot options here. Same thing as what we saw in boot override. You could temporarily go in here and select the one-time boot up to something other than your default. And then the boot option, sorry, those are the boot options here. What's this? I don't know the difference between those two. Very strange. Looks like they both do the same thing. BBS menu is where I would go if I was looking to override the boot, or I would just typically go to setup and do it there. Once you're all done, you save and exit, or in our case, we just say boot, and then it just goes back to booting up. And that's very, very typical of a MINISFORUM BIOS setup. Some of the options are unique for this machine, but otherwise it's mostly identical to other MINISFORUM PCs. And then hopefully, if we didn't damage anything, taking it apart and putting it back together, it'll boot us right back into the desktop, unless we screwed up. Now, the reason it's saying please wait is, remember I interrupted it while it was doing updates? Well, what do you think it's doing right now? One of two things is happening. It's either finishing what I interrupted it from doing, or it's corrupted files and it's finding them and returning them back to a non-corrupt status because it lost power while it was working, which is one of the worst things you can ever do to a computer as far as your data goes. It doesn't hurt anything physically, not typically, but it can do is just corrupt your whole operating system. Let me come back here with camera 1 and I'll put myself in the corner so we can keep an eye on that. Might be it could be an update going in. This could be a while. This would not have happened if I would have left it alone. And you can see it's recovered. And it'll go back to wanting to start over on those updates that did not complete correctly because we interrupted it. Now, a few years ago on older versions of Windows, you couldn't survive that. Windows would just blue screen and you'd have to reinstall. Coming up in part 2, we will do a wipe and reinstall this anyway, just to see, what's the driver situation. I'm always curious when I install a clean, up-to-date version of Windows 11. Do we get network card drivers? What drivers are we missing? We certainly will need chipset drivers, probably GPIO, I don't know. I'll run the benchmarks tonight, or anyway, between now and next Sunday. I'll run Cinebench in both balanced and in silent mode. That's going to take nearly an hour to get that done. I'll save the results as a screenshot. We'll run Crystal Diskmark and we'll see what the performance of that included Gen 4 NVMe is. It's Kingston, so it's probably 5,000 to 6,000 megabytes per second. It's probably right down the middle of a Gen 4 drive. Again, what you would expect to keep the price as cheap as possible. And reminding you, we are in the middle of an SSD and RAM storage, RAM and SSD shortage. I'll find the words. Supply is under. Demand is much stronger than supply. They can't make it fast enough. And when there is a supply chain issue where we cannot get enough product as what we consume, we end up with a shortage, and this makes the price go up because competition goes away. Now it's just a question of, can I find it? I don't even care how much money it is. When you really need it, like toilet paper, and there's a shortage of toilet paper, and you go to the stores and it's not on the shelves, when you do see it on the shelf and you think it's a little too much money, what are you going to do? You're going to pay for it. If you really need it, you'll pay the extra $1 or $2 or whatever it is. They know that. Because if you won't, the person right behind you will. And when that stock is gone, it'll be a while before they get more in. Well, that's the situation with RAM and storage right now. It won't be that way forever. But as a result, it's doubling the cost of computers right now. This is $260 and change without RAM or storage. And you can double that if you want a minimal amount of RAM and storage. 16 gigs, 500 storage, 500 gig storage, 16 gigs of RAM. You're over $550. And that's across the board for any mini PC. It's not more expensive for this one than it is for anything else. If you want to wait till all this goes by, it's probably another 12, 18 months is predicted, and then things may settle back. They will never go back to the prices they were because we don't go back in time. Inflation still takes effect the same. Prices would have naturally risen on their own in 18 months because inflation. No matter supply and demand, that's just inflation. The amount you pay in rent is higher today, if you're paying rent, than it was years and years ago. That's inflation. So when we say things go back to normal, we mean back to regular market rates, where there's more supply than there is demand. That's where we were at, and that's why prices were getting so low. So when things start to return, the prices should improve significantly, but then you can estimate what would be the inflation rate in 18 months. You can ask Google, and then it should give you a pretty decent range of price that these will likely return back to. But once it returns back, people will keep buying it because it's like they've been starved. Once people get satiated after they've filled their bellies, which could take another 6 months, and the feeding frenzy is over, then the prices will settle back. So you're at another 6 to 12 months. So if you're looking for really good pricing, you're at least 2 years away, in my opinion. And I could be very wrong on this, but based on historic economics and what we've seen with other supply chain shortages during the pandemic that wasn't that long ago, this is a repeat of the same exact thing. Okay? So if you want to play, you got to pay. If you want to wait, when the feeding frenzy dies down, there will be plenty of food and it'll be cheaper. You just have to wait. If you don't want to wait, then you have to pay. Same as everyone else on the planet. It's not any different in any country on this planet. The supply is just not meeting the demand. It won't stay that way. It's really hard to determine how long it's going to be. And, we're right in the middle of it. We're not at the beginning. We're not at the end. So it's hard to tell exactly, are we heading towards the beginning of the middle, or are we heading towards the end of the middle? Only time will tell. But just set your expectations accordingly. Andy says the jury is back on this MINISFORUM mini, but the decision has to wait until the next installment of the review. Yeah, I would recommend waiting until we have more information on it. So far, for the price and what you're getting, what are you comparing it to? My question for you would be, let me go back to camera one over here on the screen. When considering the value of a computer, what are you comparing it against? So when we look at this price point with this RAM and this storage, or bare bones, at that price point, the way we evaluate if we like it or don't like it is usually, as far as I know, only done by how we compare it to other things. Without comparison, there is no unhappiness. So if there's a better value out there for the same price or less money, don't keep that to yourself. I want to know about it. Because this is our very first time looking at this brand new chip from Intel, we don't really have much to compare it to yet, other than previous generations. I don't think there's a previous generation of chip that sells for this price that functions at this performance. But if I'm wrong, send me an email or leave a comment. Give me a make and model so I can double check. But we will see another one of these Core 3s that just came out. And I believe it's the same one. I believe it's a 304 coming from Carey. They said they sent it, but I don't know if they did or not. We haven't. I thought I'd have it by now. I got shipping confirmation that the GLINet Comet Q did ship to me, and I should get it next week. So we'll review that probably Friday, unless I get it early, and I'll do it Wednesday. So we're going to review the Comet Q KVM. And then SiPede has a competing model, the Nano, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, it's cheaper, smaller, and it appears to be better, as they always seem to one-up GLINet for size, flexibility, and cost. Will that remain true? Well, as far as I know, the SiPede unit that we ordered should arrive within a week or two of the GLINet. And they were both ordered on Kickstarter. So we're backers to these. We're going to be one of the first people to have the finished product. And it'll need some polishing like anything else new, but see how it is out of the box and how it's different from other KVMs. So I'm looking forward to those reviews. All made possible by your contributions and support of the channel. We did pay for that with the funds we received from our members. That's what paid for these Kickstarters. That's what's paying for pretty much everything you see on this channel. We don't have any sponsorships in that regard. We're not a mouthpiece for MINISFORUM. MINISFORUM sent this to us for free and said we could air it anytime we want to and say anything we want. and I have no desire to be anything other than honest. Sometimes that's brutal. If a company says, hey, would you evaluate this thing, and it looks like something I don't like, I say no. There's been, for example, a few NAS software companies reaching out to us that never existed before, and they want to charge a subscription for the license. So in other words, if you wanted to build your own NAS, you'd have to provide your own NAS operating system, where there's plenty to choose from for free, TrueNAS and Unraid. You can't make any money giving away the operating system for free unless it's like open source, and good luck getting it finished, because people come and go. They're so fickle. Projects get started and they get abandoned, or the people working on it only work in their spare time when they're in the mood. So things like, you know, if you compare Plex to Jellyfin, Jellyfin is very, very difficult to use by comparison. If you're a technical person, you might say it's easy. If you're a regular person, you might say no. If you compare Blender software with professional 3D rendering software, Blender is very difficult to learn. Linux is very difficult to learn by comparison to Windows. It's just you're paying with your time, that's all. And if you want to do that and you enjoy it, that's great. You make up the minority of people in society. Most people aren't interested. Just make it work. So when these companies that are offering these new NAS operating systems so that you can roll your own NAS, they're unfinished products, they're brand new, and they'll offer you an annual subscription or a lifetime subscription. And we've seen how all this works with companies that then go out of business because they can't afford to stay in business with a bunch of lifetime subscriptions. Or you could just buy a Synology or a QNAP or a SUSE or a TerraMaster where the software is already built in and has had years and years of polishing, all built into the price, and there's never a fee for it. So I say to these companies, no offense, but I'm not interested in reviewing your NAS software because it doesn't make any sense. When designing your own NAS because you have old hardware laying around that consumes more power, is more difficult to get into because it doesn't have removable trays, and you're using software that hasn't had time yet to be refined, so you're more of a security risk and it's more education and learning to figure out how to configure it, you're now going to spend 3 times more money when it's all said and done, and 3 times more time than if you just took something out of the box that was ready to eat. Take it out, plug it in, turnkey solutions with a more polished operating system, not worry about licenses and stuff. So no offense to these companies. We appreciate they reach out. But I can tell you, I'm not going to like it. So since I already know that, I'm not going to take it and then sit there and slam on it for an hour or 2 on a video. If I already know that, I politely decline. So just because a company wants to send us something for free, we don't just automatically take it. Just so you know. If MINISFORUM made a product that I think I wasn't going to like, I will not accept it. I'll say, keep it, send it to somebody else. If I don't know, but I'm hopeful that, yeah, this is potentially something really great, absolutely, I do want to review it. But if I already know I'm not going to like it, my answer is come back to me in about 3 or 4 years when you guys mature, when the software matures, not the people. And let me see what your pricing is and see if this even makes any financial sense versus just buying Synology, a SUSE or a QNAP or TerraMaster and having it already done and built in. And a lot more user-friendly. So that's the logic I use here when I'm trying to decide what are we going to evaluate. Jim Kenny says, did I miss the CMOS battery? I didn't show the CMOS battery. I think that's on the other side. And I was trying to get the board out. And it looks like it's just a regular wrapped battery with the wires that lock in. And it's on the other side of the board. It's there. I did see the wires. And if you look closely, if you go back in the video and freeze frame it when I was showing it, you'll see off to the side there's a 2-wire plug-in, not to miss the 2 wires coming from the antenna on the Wi-Fi, because those you won't see plugged into the motherboard. This is the only, almost the only plug you see plugged in to the motherboard, and that's likely My guess is that's the CMOS battery wrapped around to the front, to the top of the unit. Because remember, we had it upside down when we open it. Now, if that were the case and I had to change the BIOS battery, I would take the NVMe drive out and I would take the Wi-Fi card out, so that way I don't have to worry about the antennas breaking. And I would just hang them off. Well, take the NVMe out, set it down, let the Wi-Fi card stay attached to the antennas, and just let it hang off the side. Then I'm sure the motherboard would come out just fine. We could change the battery, pop it back in, slide the M.2 Wi-Fi card back in, and slide the M.2 NVMe back in. Yeah, that doesn't look like it's that big of a deal. It'd be nice if it was all on the same side, but it's there. So I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to talk about that, and then I lost my train of thought until you just mentioned it. I forgot. He says, okay, thanks. I thought I missed it. We both kind of missed it because I was going to talk about it. When I was taking the board out, that wasn't why I was doing it. I was doing it because it seemed like it was easy to come out. When it started fighting me, and I said, okay, I'm starting to pinch wires here. Those wires are very delicate. There was really, and then when I was putting the Wi-Fi antennas, I was trying to align them. It's right next to where what I believe is the BIOS battery, where it plugs in. And then I was going to talk about that, and then I got so fixated on getting them, because it wasn't very easy, was it? Every time I'd align it, then it would pinch on the other side, and I was like, what's going on? And then I was like, finally so anxious to, now that it's in position, let's close it up. Don't let it move anymore. So that's not very easy as far as that goes, but there shouldn't really be any reason to open that up. Except if and when the BIOS battery, well, there's no if, when the BIOS battery dies, it's probably be about 5 years. So ask me again in 2030, 2031, and if we still have it, it'll probably need a battery. Still easier to change that battery than that server battery, by the way. What a stupid design by Asus. What were they thinking? And that motherboard that I'm complaining about, bare bones, that board is $2,000. So you could buy about 8 of these bare bones for the cost of that bare bones board. And that BIOS battery, by comparison, is much easier to change. So, like I say, comparison, the cause of all unhappiness. Walkabout says, what do you think is the best use case for this? I can think of a lot of really good use case scenarios for this. One would be if you're working from home. This is a great computer to remote in because you're probably going to be limited by your internet bandwidth. So having some big rocket ship of a computer just to log into another computer at work doesn't make any sense, because you'll be like having a Ferrari and trying to drive it on the freeway at rush hour. You're not going anywhere. You're not faster than anybody. What a stupid waste of money if that's why you bought it. In this case, though, remote work, this would be fantastic. If you wanted this for any digital signage, because it's so small, light, and inexpensive, you could do digital signage, menu boards, all that kind of thing. This is easy. This is overkill for that. If you wanted a home media theater type PC, HTPC, this is ideal because it's small, it's quiet, and you could also browse the web, and you could do Zoom on this, easy. You could do Microsoft Teams on this, easy. If you had an office and you were doing work, so you needed to open PowerPoint, Excel, Word, email, Adobe, PDF files, whatever, this will handle that super easy. Regular work. If you're a home user and you just like social media, email, paying some bills online, reading the news, playing some games, and I'm talking like the older crowd, playing cards, playing solitaire, playing word jumbles, that sort of thing. They don't want to spend a lot of money for a trinket. If you're doing some content creation on a budget, this will handle it just about as well as your phone will. as far as like video editing or any sort of content creation. This is probably better than a phone as far as power goes for video editing and things. But, you know, plenty of people these days will just use their phone and CapCut and post videos nonstop to YouTube and TikTok, for example, Facebook, Instagram. It's all just phones and CapCut. This blows that out of the water. So if you were trying to do, I don't know, slicer files with 3D rendering or heavy-duty video content editing, content creation, this will still do that too. It's just going to be quite slow about it. That's the only difference. What's your time worth? And how much money do you have? How much of it are you willing to part with? How much is your time worth? If it's something you only do once in a while to edit some big video thing once every couple months, it might be just worth it to tolerate it being a little bit slow once in a great while for those tasks. That's for you to decide. There's nothing this computer can't do that a more expensive computer can do. You're paying for speed. For the most part, that's your only limitation. So if the slowest part of the computer is the user, then a faster computer doesn't help. If you drive a 600 horsepower car, but you don't know how to drive a 600 horsepower car, so you're driving it like a Prius, there's no point in you having that car or having that expense. It's completely a waste of money for you. Having a better car, more expensive car, does not make you a better driver or give you better driving skills. If you're having a hard time seeing or your reactions are slower, you don't want to go that fast. Same with a computer. If you're a slow reader and a slow typer, a faster computer probably doesn't help you. Probably. So you have to decide that for yourself. You could use it for Discord. Yes, you could use it for Discord. Pay online bills. Absolutely. You're not going to game? No, you could game. You see, I'll tell you what's interesting. I don't know what you mean by game. Isn't solitaire a game? Last I checked, checkers and chess are games. You know what else? Retro games. Aren't those still games? Or games that don't require a lot of resources. A lot of esports games, League of Legends, things like that, probably run just fine on there. If you were a child and you needed something to play Roblox and do your homework on, you don't want to give that child a $2,000. I wouldn't want to give that child a $2,000 gift. Give them something cheap that they could abuse. So, Minecraft, lots and lots of games play just fine on this. If you want to play AAA titles that just came out, maybe not so much. But you know, speaking of that, you know what just came out was the anniversary edition of Doom, which I think is free. And it's old school graphics, you know what I mean? I'll bet you this will run that like it's nothing. All new levels of this classic arcade game. Well, not arcade, first-person shooter. And it looks like it came from the 90s. It's not some enhanced version that requires more processing power. But they, for whatever reason, they revisited it and added a whole new series of levels and challenges, and I think it's free. So if you're an old school gamer, retro gamer, but now there's new levels that, you know, those games were so much fun in the 90s, and I got news for you, they're still fun today. They didn't just not become fun anymore. So yeah, lots of examples on how this could be used. The question would be, when would you need something better than this? And then you'd have to tell me, like you'd have to say, well, I do this or that. That would be sort of demanding, resource intensive, and relatively less common than the average person. And when you tell me what that is, then I can tell you what your minimum should be. Usually the software you're using will tell you what the minimum and recommended requirements are right on the specifications. Whether it's a game or it's AutoCAD, whatever it is, it'll have required and recommended specs. but that's not the most common use case scenario of a computer around the world. This is. So to make it affordable, this will probably sell like hotcakes. All right, so appreciate the question. I hope that answers it. I think that'll wrap it up for us for today. Unless you have other questions for me, I'm happy to stick around and answer them. I got an email today from a customer who I sold a computer to out of state years ago. And he says, computer's running perfect, except I clicked on something I shouldn't have, and now it says your computer is updating and the mouse is moving around. And I think it's something called Splashtop, and can you help me remotely? I said, well, everything you've got on that computer has been stolen. Pictures, Word documents, passwords, it's all gone. It's already gone. Well, I've turned off the computer. Okay, but I mean, it's done. Just logging in remotely to remove Splashtop probably isn't going to be enough. Well, you could kick them out for now. I don't know how you're going to keep them out. Because you're in another state, it's a bit much. You could always box it up and mail it to me, and I'll format it. You know, I can pull your data off of it, even though I'm sure the thieves already have a copy of your data. I can pull your data off of it safely and put your data back on, but we have to wipe the whole thing and start over again if we want to make sure that the virus is gone. So now we're going to count how many times this is happening. In the last 4 years now, this is number 5. I suspect he didn't have Malwarebytes running. I don't know, but it's too late now. The milk has spilled. Best I can do is help you clean it up, set the milk jug back up right, and put it back to like it was when I sent it to him years ago when he bought it. I think he still said it had Windows 10 on it. I can put Windows 11 on it. It's probably just a BIOS change to turn the TPM on, and he doesn't know that, and he never asked. So he could get an upgrade to Windows 11 out of it, but the cost of shipping it to me and me shipping it back is probably about $200. He could find someone locally in his state that could do it just as well. Whether or not they recover his data for him, I don't even know that he's got anything on there he wants, or that he doesn't already have a backup. I don't know. I haven't talked to this guy in years. But it's funny that business has been really slow, and all of a sudden, these people are calling. The one thing these people all have in common is they're all retired. They're all in their 70s or 80s. And these hackers are getting more and more clever. To people who consider themselves clever, even they're getting tricked now. So you're not above it, neither am I. And especially the older we get. The bad guys start getting ahead of us, and we don't know that until it happens, because we're not on top of it like we used to be. So be aware of it. It's not anything to embarrass anybody. It's to be learned from, to say, here's how this happened. Don't let it happen to you. Once it happens, something like this only has one fix, one certain fix. That's a complete wipe and reinstall. And hopefully he has a backup of his data, because I can tell you the thieves do. And they'll likely not give it back for free. So I'm in the middle of talking to that person. I am more than happy to work on it if they want to mail it to me. It's certainly something to consider with a mini PC. If it was a mini PC that this happened to and not a big Corsair 200R, you could mail it to me for about $30. Then I would get it and I would mail it back for about $30. The shipping time is the same. It's only the expense and the likelihood for damage with a big tower computer like a 200R. If you ask me, I wish this customer had a mini PC. Frankie B had a computer problem with a mini PC, sent it in to me from the opposite side of the country. We had it in like 3 days. I fixed it and I shipped it back, and it took another 3 days. The whole process was under 2 weeks when you include weekends. From the time he sent it to the time I got it, repaired it. You were here, you saw it, right? And it was very affordable. The discouraging part is to spend that kind of time and effort to package it so there's no damage, then to pay upwards of $100 for one way of shipping, then to hope when it arrives there's no damage to it, dents and things like that. So in that circumstance, I'd say it's better to find someone locally for the $200. You know what I mean? Let someone locally do it. Just find someone reputable. Don't just pick anybody. And if they need some help, I belong to certain computer groups, like the Association of what's it called? ASIC, the Computer Repair Individuals. And if they're part of that, am I remembering the name? ASCII. That's what it's called, ASCII. If they're a part of ASCII, I know they're good techs. If they're not a part of ASCII, they're probably just amateurs. I can also ask around, like here on the channel, and say, does anybody know somebody that works on computers, or even yourselves, that live around this area in this state? And then I can, say, okay, tell the customer, this person sounds like they could help you and they live in your area. So you're not just picking blindly from a Google search. Or don't take it to Geek Squad, whatever you do. So you could also just take the computer to the FedEx store and ask them to wrap it in bubble wrap and put it in one of their boxes. That's another $40 on top of the shipping. So you're looking about $120. And then I can reuse the packing in the box when I pack it back, so then I'm just paying the shipping back. If it was a mini PC, this could go into a free box from FedEx, a 2-day express box for $30. So we'll see what he wants to do, but there's nothing I can do remotely to help him, unfortunately. And I think the last time I heard from him was 7 years ago. So I barely even remember selling him the computer. that just because he's been out of touch, Dave Hall said he clicked on some search item, he picked up a virus. Again, paying for Malwarebytes can prevent that from happening. It's not 100%, but it's pretty damn good. It's worth the $30 a year. Newegg often sells it very cheaply. They just email you a license code. You don't have to wait for the software. You just go to MINISFORUM, download the MINISFORUM. Go to Malwarebytes, download the software for free. You get a free 15-day trial of it fully working, like the paid version, for 15 days. You can go to Newegg. Newegg always seems like they always have it on sale. Or you could pay full price to Malwarebytes if you want to. And all you're doing is you're punching a code in, it activates it for the license period, usually a year. And that'll do one hell of a job to keep you from getting infected. Again, it's not 100%, but it's a whole hell of a lot better than nothing for a Windows Defender when it comes to that kind of infection. And just because it hasn't happened to you yet and you're patting yourself on the back with how smart you are, it's that overconfidence that'll bite you on the butt every single time. Just give it time. Let that confidence keep building. Get that false sense of control, and that's when you'll lose it. It happens to all of us, every single one of us, sooner or later. And the longer it takes between, the more confident and delusional you get about how smart you're being. Now, if you're really smart about it, you'll have image backups, and you'll say, okay, well, I know that when this happens, not if, when it happens, I've got a contingency plan ready to rock and roll. That's a service I offer my paying clients. There's nothing that can happen to my paying clients, nothing that I can't recover them from. Fires, thefts, floods, viruses, ransomware, espionage within the company, sabotage, lightning strikes, acts of nature, floods, tsunamis, earthquakes, whatever it is. I can get them back up and running within hours, regardless of what the source of the problem is. because that's what we have backups for, and we keep them up to date. It's insurance. People say, why do we keep making backups if we never need them? Stop making them. Find out. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up then. He says he tried Malwarebytes, but it would not run. No, you got to put Malwarebytes in before the infection, not after it. It's like trying to buy insurance for your car after you got into the car accident. No. This is something you have to do before you need it. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you to all of our members in green that support us here. Thank you to Mara for all the work she does as our channel administrator with the thumbnail designs that she creates. Titling and doing our video descriptions, a lot of work. Also, she answers your emails, which you can send anytime to this address right here, showcasecreate@gmail.com. We always love to hear from you. And thank you to MINISFORUM for considering us to review this. I think we're the very first review of this product on YouTube. Basically the pro of that is I have content nobody else has right now. If you want to learn about this, you can either watch this video today, or you can watch a bunch of AI created stuff that's all nonsense. That's all that's up. I expect we'll see other content creators follow soon thereafter, and then you can gauge their opinions and views with mine, and hopefully you'll get some thoughts from other content creators I hadn't considered, both pro and con, and decide for yourself. But it's very nice of them to think of us. So thank you to MINISFORUM for that. Thank you, of course, to Buster, our good friend of the channel here that continuously supports us financially. And so much of these videos he is directly responsible for, you'll never know. So I always like to give him a special shout out for so much sacrifice he makes for the channel. But for each and every one of you, you're all valuable to me, and I appreciate you being here. And I hope you'll join me again. We'll be back Wednesday, and for the members, you know I'm back tomorrow. For members only, those are the people in green, to join us each Monday at 1 o'clock to talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff, or sometimes I do repairs and diags that I don't want to share to the public, but I have a trusted members-only community that I don't have to worry about stuff like that. So if you're interested, it's just a benefit of membership to help support us and keep us going. We'll look forward to seeing everybody that's a member tomorrow. And enjoy the rest of what's left of your weekend. And we'll catch you back here, everybody, on Wednesday, 1 o'clock, as always, Pacific time. Until then, bye for now.